Dun, 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 dun.
You're just standing on the cusp of what's
Welcome to the show. Welcome, David. Welcome to the show. Just getting started. Got a little background music as we let people jump in here. Hopefully you don't scroll by. I think we have a hot topic today, and these lives are just so cool. I enjoy speaking to so many of you, meeting people from all over the country to talk about whether you're MAGA, liberal, or anywhere in between, talking to you guys and giving people a new perspective, something that we may think is impossible. That's certainly not impossible. It's challenging, but it's not complex. And it would be to do exactly that. It's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it certainly could happen. And I will contend that it absolutely has to happen, or we will lose our democracy entirely, right? Because we're not working or functioning as a representative democracy like we should be today, but there's opportunity for us to bring it back where our representatives represent the people, for the people, by the people. And it's going to take something dramatic. So as TikTok is notifying more people, thanks for the blossoms and the hearts and all that stuff. Again, I'm just getting started here, so hopefully everybody can hear me clearly. I'm going to be taking guests on this show to get me your thoughts. If you think you're in for this, please follow me here and hit the comments and make sure you say, "What's up, Patient Forever? Good to see you." And we're just getting started. So if you're scrolling by, we're just getting started here. We usually have a pretty good showing. And we usually have a lot of guests that have a lot of good insight. So this is not just about me talking about certain things. We have a lot of very intelligent Americans. Most of them typically are Americans that come on here to give their points of view on the state of our politics and to think a little bit outside the box. Now, you may have been hearing things about the Purple Revolution. This is not that, even though this is purple. This is not the Purple Revolution. I do not subscribe to this couple young people and this dude. I think it's a little silly myself because they just don't get it. They just don't know what they don't know. But hey, all credit to them for giving it a shot and trying to do something different. But I just don't see it actually being anything super valid going forward. So again, we're just getting started on this live. We're going to invite my good friend, Mr. Global, back into the chat so he can help me prep if he wants to. And if you just want to hang out behind the scenes and listen in, of course, you're welcome to do that as well. Welcome, Mr. Global. Good to see you again.
What's up, GK?
It's been 48 hours, man, since we did a live.
Hey, and a break is always needed sometimes.
Yeah, I did need a little mental refresher yesterday.
Absolutely.
So what do you think about this topic today? You think we're going to hit some nerves?
I popped in, if we could replace all career politicians for both parties to eliminate career, would you vote for it? I like it. That's a good one. I think the obvious answer is yes.
Let's hope so, right? Let's hope that's the obvious answer.
At least the entrenched politicians, right?
Yeah. Well, even though that I don't rail against every single politician, because I do believe there are politicians that go into office meaning well. It's just at the end of the day, they're all backed by both parties, and that compromises themselves no matter how much they would want to admit it or not. It does compromise their ability to do really what they want to do.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah, so we have a bunch of comments coming by. It looks like we're getting more and more people in here. So if you're scrolling by, please stick around for a little bit. We usually have some interesting conversations. And more importantly, shit, man, if we care about our lives and our future, maybe it starts somewhere.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for the gifter badges and the likes. And we may as well get started as people are zinging by and doom scrolling. If you're doom scrolling, make your dead end right here. All right.
I'm guilty of that.
We all are, right? It's like, what else is on live? What's really cool about these lives is just instead of just speaking in front of a camera, we get to speak to people, right? And it's just so much different, much more natural. All right. So anyway, so I haven't seen too many comments. I'm going to pay more attention to the comments. So people probably think, what's this nut doing? If we could replace all career politicians from both parties to eliminate corruption, would you vote for it? And are you in? So for those of you who don't know this account, that's pretty much what the platform is based on, is that instead of arguing about blue topics or red topics or issues, as I like to call them, the regular everyday issues, it's more about let's focus on what really matters, the root cause of all of our problems, and that's how much influence there is by big money in our politics that's buying both parties. And that if we ever want to truly change the direction of our country and transform our politics, we're going to need to do that. The people are going to need to do that. And there's actually something, I want to read something from the Declaration of Independence, because it is the people's responsibility. So before we have the first guest in, if there's anyone who wants to answer this question, give me your thoughts. You might disagree and say it's impossible. I get a lot of that. It's impossible. It will never happen, yada, yada, yada. I'm happy to hear those views and maybe talk you out of it and maybe change your mindset a little bit. So the Declaration of Independence says when a government becomes destructive to the rights of the people, it is not only their right, but they're also their duty to change or abolish it and establish a new government that will protect their safety and happiness. Even though I hate that word, happiness, that's what it says. Let's say it is the right of people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. I like the way ChatGPT actually summarized it better than the actual wording in the document. So that's the thought. So when people think abolish the government and establish a new government, what does that mean? It doesn't mean abolish the Constitution. It doesn't mean abolish the administrative or the functional government. It means to replace generally all the people in the government, not the system of government necessarily. And when they say that, you could look at it clearly as the Republican and Democratic Party, because these are not in the Constitution. The Republican and Democratic Party are not written into the Constitution as a two-party system. So most people probably believe that we have to be a two-party system, and it's not true. We used to have many more parties. There used to be smaller parties and bigger parties, and we still do have other parties like the Green Party and the Libertarian Party, I believe, is still active. But there's nothing that mandates that has to be a Democratic or Republican Party. So when I read this thing from the Declaration of Independence to abolish, it's our duty to change or abolish it. I think it's most focused on abolish the parties because they're not part of the formal government per se, right? They are private entities that are basically like private tribes that are just happen to be the way we elect our politicians today. But it wasn't always like that. Maybe you can summarize that better than I just did because I wasn't super clear, I don't think.
No, you're very clear.
Okay.
Very clear.
All right, so we got a pretty good group in here. Does anyone want to jump in? You're welcome to join as a guest. I don't have any guests waiting for me, waiting in the box yet. So if you have any thoughts on this, I would love to hear from people, just your mindset. Like, why would you think that this can't happen? Is it just because the state of the world or the state of the country right now? Do you think it's totally impossible? Do you think it's legally impossible? Like, what are your thoughts? Or are you an optimist like I am that says if enough people, like ultimate power is always in the power of the people. And while none of us individually feel like we can do anything, that's not true when we become unified as a group. And James Rush 21, you said very clear. Thank you very much for that. Sometimes I think I'm rambling around the bush, so it helps to get a little confirmation that I'm on point. So even whether you're an optimist or you're someone who doesn't believe it's possible, and I will understand that point of view because I know it seems impossible. But I think when you think about it through critical thinking, when you think through it critically, then you'll understand that it's not impossible. It is possible, although it might be very difficult or challenging. I always like to say it's not complex. It's actually very possible if you had enough people to do it.
Well, I think one has to ask themselves, is it needed? Do we need to? And I feel like in current times, I feel like everyone's answer should be yes. At least the small people, not the corporations, not the entrenched politicians. I wanted to mention though this J Crispy 859. He left a comment earlier. I don't know if you saw it, but it's a little aggressive. He
All right.
says, not an advocate for political violence, the founding fathers would execute 90% of the people in DC.
That was pretty aggressive. But yeah, I would assume that means he's quite angry.
Yeah.
And I guess
And
we all are, right? I certainly am frustrated, angry at times as well.
I I think if I if I try to put my mind if I try to wrap my head around how they would think, if what was happening today was happening, I mean, and there wasn't any inkling of change. I mean, at some point you have to do something.
And this is a group of people, the founding fathers, that actually fought for their freedom and used violence in order to gain their freedom.
Yeah.
But they set up a system that was supposedly supposed to evolve so it wouldn't ever require that. So even in the
Which
Declaration of Independence saying abolishing it, they would never advocate for completely abolishing the existing government because again, it's not government's fault. It's people's. It's the people in government. There's the problem.
right. Well, and then it's like, well, do um I had a train of thought. I
That's
lost
right.
it.
We'll ask James Rush. James, if you've had some good comments, if we're very civil here. We won't tear you apart like in some other channels. We're not here to belittle anyone. We're here to tell you whether you're MAGA or liberal or anywhere in between to recognize that we probably have a lot more in common than we have difference now. And because it's not about issues here other than this one value principle of eliminating corruption, right? Eliminating the influence from our government. And I've known from thousands or if not tens of thousands of comments on my videos that the vast majority of people agree with that. Actually, I just did a poll on my last video that I created asking if people are in for basically this same topic. And there were 200 and X votes and only one person that said no and everyone else said yes. So it was at 99% for a while because that one detractor, and then it went to 100% because it was like the fractions were so minimal. It's like, all right, it's just 100% of the people, even though one person disagreed with it.
Right.
I thought that was kind of funny because I saw it at 99% each of the days.
Well, it's necessary. It's
Yeah. So,
necessary to fight the good fight that you're fighting, and I think it's about time.
and we see from some of these other movements, even though I'm using this purple caption today, has nothing to do with the purple revolution, even though that seems to be on TikTok. People think it's this really big movement. I guess it's some movement. It's something better than nothing. But man, I want to disparage anybody, but that's a shit show. Like that's just a complete shit show. I mean, I hate to say it. It's like the blind leading the blind. I'm sorry. They might mean well. Oh boy, but come on, you gotta have some perspective of
Action
history.
plan.
What's that?
Action plan. There was no action plan.
No, it's just what 220-something-year-olds and some guy that was in the military. And again, I don't want to disparage them, but there was nothing there. There's nothing there. Because
Yeah.
like you said, there's no plan. It's just too fragmented. As I always say, it's like, I'm not a ripple, tiniest ripple anywhere. Like, and they're thinking there's a movement. You don't have a movement. I don't think in my mind, there's nothing there until you got a million people. Like once you get a million people that want to do something like this, then you might start to get a little ripple and you might start to build a little wave. But like 100,000 people or 100,000 views, like it's not even, if ET would not even, be able to find the M&Ms if it was just a little crumb on the ground. Like, where am I supposed to go? That was really showing my Gen X age with going back to ET, because I would say probably a lot of the audience doesn't even know what that is.
It's been a minute since I've seen that movie.
Yeah. James Rush, I'm in the U.S. Navy veteran, and I do not support this administration and the lying from Republicans. Yes, agreed. And I don't support either party, not because I view them all as lying the same amount, but I think there's just so much corruption on each side. Haitian forever, you're the first up in our group. I think you were on earlier today, or was that in the past? Do you remember him, Mr. Global?
A couple days ago.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello there. Hello again. I'll give you a couple minutes here. Thanks for being the first guest today. What are your thoughts?
My thought on this is to me to have another party. To me, it's like a dream because I don't know if it's in
Um,
this society. I don't know if I'm off topic.
yeah, I'm not quite following, and you're not clear enough.
I'm the. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was saying that my take on this is like having another party. To me, like nowadays or the society that we live in, or listening to people's opinion or people's idea, is like a dream. It's still like a dream. I'm not gonna say it's impossible.
Right.
Yeah.
But sometimes my question is it with the education of the people, like in the country? Like everybody from the education, how they see government, how they see society,
Yeah.
Well,
and then is it necessary?
it's a good point of view. Like it does seem like a dream. That's a great perspective. It seems like a
Yeah.
dream, but I would say any entrepreneur, like I've been an entrepreneur a long time, and sometimes you start these ideas for this grand ambition of a company. It's also just a dream.
Because
It's
I watch in 2016 the Green Party, they try everything. They even offered Bernie a place on the ticket. He didn't want to take it. I don't know if it's the corporate because the corporate is in the way. Because
yeah.
everybody have their own views, and then like I learned before, I don't think a true democracy exists because when we talk about let's say we live in a democratic republic, it's like we're talking about fairness. So it's equal. Everybody will have the same access. Let's say everybody agree on we're gonna have election. It's on a Sunday. Everybody, it's a holiday, so everybody get the chance to vote to choose, which is would be a fair thing to do.
Well, it is a national holiday. Election day is a national holiday where you're supposed to be given off, but that's not.
Yes, but I mean, I'm talking about in America. Like
Yeah.
any other country, it's a national holiday. Everything closed for
Yeah.
everybody get the chance to vote.
Yeah. I agree. That would be a great
So
idea. We should move it maybe to a Sunday.
yeah, that
Yeah.
that shouldn't be a fight. We could still have early voting and everything, and everybody has got the national day. This is the day off, so they get the chance to go and vote and choose who they want to be the leader.
Yep.
But if you ask why can't it happen, maybe like we are here on the media all the time. Maybe it's money in politics. Maybe this is the reason.
That is the reason, right? And that's what
But
Mr. Global and I are always fighting that. That's the fight. It's the money and the media is part of the reason or the main root cause of all of this.
and I would think that should be in everybody's interest.
Yep.
Everybody get to choose, which is the true democracy. Everybody get to choose who they want to lead.
Yep.
But
Which
is
it
it gonna
used to be
happen?
that way, right? It used to be
Say
that way, TK. I mean, wasn't there? I correct me if I'm wrong, but in my history lessons, I thought there was some point where there was a point in time where everybody's vote was like one vote or something like that, or there was like a different way that they voted for different issues or brought issues about, which is completely different from what it is today.
You mean those are referendums that we still have today on occasion, not on a federal level. I don't think we ever have referendums anymore on a federal level, but no, on a state level, there are referendums,
Oh, okay.
right?
because in most country, I think even in Europe, I don't know if it's a holiday on a Sunday. Because most country I know that they do it on a Sunday.
Yep.
Everybody take off so
Yep.
they can go vote.
Now, let me point out
So
something that I think you said, Haitian, is that about the Green Party. See, the problem with
mhm,
just having a third party, there are other parties right now, but
mhm,
technically there are, but
yeah,
there's only two main parties right now. And when you are a party like the Green Party or the Libertarian Party, the having a party name or having even an assembly like the Green Party has a candidate on every ballot across the states, it's not enough because you're putting the cart before the horse. Like just having a party and having some candidates is nice, but what you have to have first is support. You have to have enough
yes,
people
yeah,
that are looking to do
yeah,
it.
yeah, to support you.
Yeah, or unless let's say in the case of Bernie, if they could have brought him over, now he still wouldn't have had enough support, in my mind, and to do something like this. But unless you get something that's somebody is truly a great speaker and a great leader and is able to attract so many people, but those people are so rare that it typically won't happen. So you have to build up a movement. So I would even say like the Convention of States, which started in 2014, and they want to have 34 states get together and amend the Constitution through what's called the Constitution of States. But the funny thing is, or not the funny thing, the sad thing is that no one's creating content. No one's constantly pushing out a message to do this. It's just like they want to collect money and then they're going to run some normal advertising, and that's not how organic or real movements grow. They don't grow through some random advertising because a bunch of people gave them some money. You have to create organic content, especially in today's world. In the last 15, 20 years, like MAGA and Trump became so popular for that group because he was always on every platform, every media, every social media constantly. He was the loudest voice in the room and he was able
Mhm.
to attract a lot of people.
But until today, from listening to different folks, I think a lot of people just they're off well what politics supposed to do, like the role
Right.
of politics in society,
It's supposed to make their lives
and then
better.
exactly. So this is the main point, and then when everybody look at government as an enterprise, is not. Government do not work for profit. You work for well-being, just
Right.
to make its citizen better. Not because a lot of people here, every time they talk like it's like a Walmart or Home Depot, or it's not a corporation. It's not an enterprise. It's really not for profit. I buy it for 5 and sell it for 5.50. It's not something like that. This is not the case.
Right.
So I think a lot of people confuse what it is, what it's supposed, government and politics in society, what it's supposed to do. This is why everybody always fight about, just like either we get into debt or because a lot of time when you short-handed, if your employer cannot pay you well enough for you to get by, the government have to pick up the leftover. This is the role of government. You
Right.
cannot make enough money to eat. Government have to help you out. They have to hand you out. This is the role of it.
Right. That's the social
So
safety net. Absolutely.
exactly. So it's necessary.
Yes. All right. I have
It's
another caller,
necessary.
Haitian. I usually try and keep
Uh-huh.
each person to about 2 or 3 minutes. So I'm going to
Okay.
take the red iron, but I appreciate you watching as usual and your perspective. Let's keep fighting the
All
good
right.
fight.
Yeah, we will. All
Yeah.
right, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, red iron, you're up next. I'm going to try and keep these down to 2 to 4 minutes or so, depending on the conversation's going. Please don't take offense if I cut you short if there's somebody else waiting. It's just trying to manage the cycle best as possible. As Red Iron's joining, if you're new to my channel, please follow, like, and spread my video. Watch the top 3 most popular videos, and if you could share and repost those, because at the end of the day, we have to get to, let's say, 1 million followers, and it's not to become a content creator or an influencer, but it is to become relevant so that we can enact the plan. So I have the plan that's listed right there. You might not be able to see it, but if you see tinyurl.com/TK Civics plan, it's a comprehensive plan on how we can do what's in the prompt here. So please do it. Welcome, Red Iron.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay? I don't have my headphones in.
Yeah, pretty loud and clear.
Great. You actually just answered part of my question. I see that you tagged where I can find more information.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. Sometimes I get lost in our own conversations and I forget to shill the actual whole idea. I don't like to just talk about problems all the time. I like to talk about the problems, but more importantly, work on solutions.
Yes. Yes.
So, what are your thoughts? Like,
And
do you have any other thoughts? Like, is it corruption or is something else that's more important to you, or what are your general thoughts about this?
well, I think currently I think with our current representation, it has brought to light a lot of the problems that our government has. A lot of it has been systemic for a very long time with corruption. But I guess my question would be is how could we expect to really eliminate the corruption from the current system that we have without having to tear it all down?
That's a great question. And are you ready for me to answer or not yet? You still have more.
Yes, ready for the answer.
Okay. All right. Mr. Global, I did put you on mute just because I saw some feedback between Red Iron speaking and it was coming back through your microphone. So I'll unmute you in a minute. Just wanted to let you know. Okay. So you're right. That's the big deal because so many people jump to the conclusion that it has to be violence in order to change things. And the point is, it doesn't have to be violence whatsoever because we have a system in play where we get to vote. But the problem with eliminating corruption and getting rid of all special interest money is no different than why Congress won't vote to ban stock trading, right? They all know they shouldn't be stock trading. We, as the public, we agree that stock trading should be banned if you're a congressional representative, or at least most people agree with that, but they'll never vote for it themselves, right? Hopefully I didn't mute you, Red Iron.
I muted myself since I was outside.
Okay. All right, great. So they won't do it
Yes.
themselves. So you're right. So it's like, well, how are we going to do it if it's neither the Democratic Party, the Republican Party won't even work on something so generally accepted like that, or let's say federal background checks on guns, which again, 89% of the population, including the NRA people, also agree with that, but they won't do that either. So the way you have to do it, or at least how I see it, is there's really only two ways. Well, there's really only one way, and that is you have to have a constitutional amendment. And you'd think, well, that hasn't happened in a while. The last one was 1992, and that was kind of a frivolous amendment, the 27th Amendment. So you have to have the 28th Amendment that would come into play that would eliminate or make all elections publicly funded by individuals, meaning human beings, and that no artificial entity, such as a corporation or anything else, could donate to elections. And then the 29th Amendment, you'd have to go even further because you just can't have the 28th Amendment. You have to have the 29th Amendment. And that would say that all politicians or being a politician cannot be a career. It has to be a temporary civic service. And that would mean term limits of some kind. And unless you do both of those in conjunction, I don't see how you could ever do it. Now, those are really big lifts. Like, how do you do that? Well, again, you won't do it with the two parties. So everyone or most people who have watched my videos would agree that those values are things that most Americans could agree to. So you would need to have a third party or have a group of people running as independents, or you'd have to take over a party of some movement like MAGA took over the Republican Party. You could take over the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. But again, all these things seem like dreams and sound impossible. And they are difficult. But what else can we do? And the answer is I don't think there's anything else you could be done to do that other than get 50 to 70 million people who would coalesce around those two things, because it unifies across MAGA and liberals and everywhere in between, because MAGA thinks of the corruption as the deep state or as the swamp, and liberals think of it as oligarchy. So in order to, that would get everybody together. So instead of fighting about whether it's abortion or gun rights or immigration or whatever it might be, those are all important issues, but they are sub-issues compared to the root cause, which I think is the 28th and the needed 28th and 29th Amendment. So I know that was long-winded. I'll turn it over to you.
No, that answered a lot of my questions, and I appreciate that. And I think it would be a great place to start with those two exact issues. I also saw someone in the comment talked about going to a popular vote, and I actually think that would help a lot also instead of just the electoral votes.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think there might be some more pushback. Like we could easily pick like 10 issues or even 20 issues that most people would agree with. The problem is you start to get lost with how many issues there are. And I think it's more important to focus on just a couple things, right? Because politics can be complicated. And I think it's better to repeat the same message over and over, even though I agree that maybe the popular vote is something to do, or, other people might say ranked choice voting or other solutions, right? And they're all viable, but we also have, how many changes can you make at once? There's two massive changes that would have to happen.
That makes sense. That does. And so with, I guess, the movement you're trying to push, those are the two biggest issues, the 25th or the 26th and 27th Amendment issues?
Yeah, 28th and 29th.
Or 28th and 29th.
Yeah, we'd probably have a sub list of issues as well that are very people could unite behind, but it would need to be those two things first, and that's definitely what we would push first. So, and my thoughts are, people might say 50 to 70 million people. That's crazy amount of people. Well, yeah, it's a really big number, but it's out of the 370 million Americans or the 150 million people that vote in a general election, yeah, it's still sizable, but it's possible. It's certainly not impossible, and especially when you have the right two issues. And my thinking is also, or the mathematical fact is, if you can have Mr. Beast or Mark Rober or dozens of other social media people have hundreds of millions of followers for entertainment or education or whatever it might be, whether it's me or anybody else, if there's enough voices out in the echo chamber generally promoting the same general idea, you can absolutely get 50 to 70 million people. It doesn't happen next month or in 6 months from now, but it has to be a prolonged, concerted attempt to get those people, to let people know that where they can find it, right? That it's changing their mindsets. Like it's a dream to a lot of people. Many people say it's impossible. It's not impossible. It's difficult, but we're starting like saying it can happen. Change your mindset. Realize it doesn't have to be red versus blue, even though it is from a practical perspective today, but it doesn't have to be that way.
And I know I'm pushing time here, but one last question for you. Have you reached out to any of the independent people running for our next coming election?
No. So on the plan, and this is a great question. So on the plan, and I'll keep this one much more brief. The plan is if you can't put the cart before the horse. So the first thing we would want to do is raise enough awareness. The number one, so become relevant. And that in alone is difficult enough, and probably the most difficult thing out of several difficult things. So it's 5 steps. The first step would be become relevant, and that's where the majority of time would be spent. The second step would then be able to communicate with that community. I like to call it a community versus a movement for now. Eventually it could be something else. You could call it a party, you could call it a movement, whatever it might be. But the second thing was have a place where everybody can communicate. And that would take, because you can't rely on TikTok or on YouTube or on Reddit. It has to be more unified. So you have to create a communication platform, which is something that we already have. We just would have to change it a little bit. And then, so you have clear communication as step 2. Step 3 would be then start recruiting regular Americans with high moral integrity who would want to serve in office temporarily as public servants. And then step 4 would then work on towards getting those people on the ballot, electing them into power. And then step 5 would actually be then implementing a 28th and 29th Amendment. And it wouldn't work if you just get, even if you could get 10 or 20 people elected, that's not enough. Like you have to have the majority of seats in order to do something this dramatic.
Okay, thank you. And I will look at the documents you have pinned, and I greatly appreciate it. I am so far all in.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you joining the live.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think might be Mr. Global. Are you still on mute? Maybe. I can't tell. I'll invite Mr. Global's microphone.
Yeah.
Okay, you're back.
I'm back though.
Is it good? I don't know if people in the comments will mention you, and you can let me know what you think. We never actually mentioned the 5 steps in the plan. We just hope that people are going to read it. Maybe it's something that we should cover more often.
I think that would be a great idea. I think, and it outlines everything as far as what your plan is to get a movement started. Um, I
Yeah.
think you should.
Yeah, and steps 3, 4, and 5 can certainly change and will evolve. Steps 1 and 2 really won't. I mean, steps 1 and 2 are about as clear as you can make it, right? You got to first become relevant, and then you got to be able to communicate with that group of people to continue to grow. And then after that, the details of what might happen is certainly subject to change based on the conditions on the ground, if you want to say, right, in the state of politics.
Exactly.
Led Is it Ledazo? Our Constitution is a living document and needs to grow with the times and the people. That's really well said, and that's exactly how the founders intended it to be, right? They, even with their vision for it, they knew they were flawed people. They knew they had 18th century morals, and they knew that this document would have to change over time. That's why they first had the Bill of Rights, and then they had following amendments after the Bill of Rights, which was the first 10 amendments. So Polaris Project, thanks for tuning in and swinging by. You're welcome to join if you want. I'll invite you. If you don't jump in, that's cool too. I don't know what you're doing. You might be eating or whatever it might be, but if you're welcome to be a guest, so that, yeah, because you always have a lot of great perspectives as well. All right, what if we just got rid of our representatives and represented ourselves? I don't know what that would look like, Wild Whimsy. You generally have direct democracy, which is where, so I think that's what you're probably implying. And if you're not, maybe I can clarify that for you. So direct democracy would be exactly that, is you do represent yourselves, because then every individual in the country would vote on every single topic. It sounds great in theory. It's wholly impractical for a society as diverse as ours and with 370 million people. That would take an exceptional amount of people that would have to be educated, or a large swath of it that would have to be really in tune with politics. And direct democracy, while in theory is really sounds like theoretically the best form of democracy, it has its own problems because it really moves slowly. Switzerland is a place with direct democracy, and it works for them because they are a very small country with very small population that's homogeneous community as well, or society as well, and it still moves slowly. And not to say slowly is always bad, but in our case, it would be bad. Like, we have thousands of issues that we need to deal with. We're
Yeah,
already moving way too slow. Like, we need to move fast.
I 100%.
Yeah, and then Led Z says, and to get better
The
politicians, we need to make elections cheaper. Absolutely. That's the 28th Amendment, make them all publicly funded. And maybe even our taxpayer dollars is allotted X amount to each person, or maybe you don't do any funding at all. Maybe there can be no money in politics and you have to have airtime or screen time. I mean, there's a lot of ways to skin that cat, but they just need to be publicly funded in some capacity. And there's lots of ways we could do that. And welcome, Upstate Michael. We see you in here as well again. Always enjoy having you in here. And
the
thanks for,
direct
yeah.
the direct democracy is always an interesting idea because it could work, but like you said, you kind of have to have a smaller population. But if you were able to establish somewhat of like a guiding document that would assist the people in prioritizing certain things to get certain things done first, like to give them a step-by-step guide as to like, okay, there's I hate to compare it to this, but there's a video game that's called City Skylines, and you basically you create a city and you're running everything from the water to zoning
Mhm.
to, have you played it or
I
have you seen
haven't,
it
but I know
before?
about those sim games. Yeah, they're pretty cool.
And it's a really in-depth game, but this one even goes as far as to like the tax system, and they even have like a pseudo Twitter that pops up that kind of feeds in from the characters, oh, the mayor's doing great or the mayor's doing terrible.
Right.
And it's I like it because it's all kind of on like this little scale, you kind of just trickle the taxes up when you need it, and then you trickle it down. If you bring them
Hmm.
up too high, then the people get ticked off, and then houses start to fall down and things go awry. So it's like it would be nice if there was something in a document or some sort of maybe even software that would kind of show the populace kind of like where we're at, what needs to happen. Maybe we need to allot X amount of dollars for the power grid, or or
Yeah.
whatever it is, or education, or I see this like in-depth thing that would assist, because otherwise it's just a bunch of people like it is today just screaming at each other.
Well, if they weren't getting paid by so many special interest groups and actually represented the people, I don't think it would be as a problem. The problem with any sort of change, major change to a direct democracy, would basically be a massive change to our constitution and to what the founding fathers designed, right? So that's outside. I view it as outside the scope, because even you get people that say already, like when I suggest that, hey, a normal high moral integrity American who may have no experience in politics would be a much better politician than the people that are there now in most cases. A lot of people say, well, that can't work because they have to understand, they have to have experience in various things. So even at the current level of a representative democracy, people push back and say, well, we need some people in there with experience. So now if we go to a direct democracy, we're basically suggesting that every single American who's going to partake in the elections has to have enough knowledge to understand geopolitics, has to understand global finance and economics based on free trade and globalism, and down the line, which is, again, sort of in my mind outside the scope of what the document says. Like once you start saying other than amendments, once you say you have to restructure the document other than amendments, then I think you're going to go down a rabbit's hole where people are like now are we creating an all new government? Not all new
I
government, an all new system.
I just feel like today, like the participation is where it's at, because nobody's, well, I mean, maybe it's part of they're just like upset that they can't change anything, or that it's difficult to change everything.
Yeah.
And then, we were talking about how people just get burned out. So do people really want to constantly participate in a system, or do they want something that kind of just works for them in the background, where they can still go out and create and have imagination and build things, and but it truly is a reflection of this. I don't know. I'm just trying to I hate to like reimagine it, and I do respect the forefathers, like I really do.
They were all so
But I
much more intelligent than all of us and more knowledgeable.
Oh, and I was thinking about that. That's what I was going to mention earlier. Do you think anybody that's in there now are they anywhere close to being at least the same level as those guys?
That's
Like,
such a good question.
like, you
Th-
know what I'm saying?
There are some older politicians that have been in politics so long that understand what they tried to do, but they are certainly not at the same level now. Like when you look at Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and Hamilton and their writing ability and their depth of knowledge of even the state of the world and what was going on in order to create that document, I mean, they were they were already dreaming, right? They were in a dream world because they could have easily, if you think about it rationally, they were the ruling people of their time. They were the ones with the knowledge, the following, the influence, like instead of a social media influence, they had the influence of their time. They had no real reason to say, we're the ruling class. Why don't we just rule this class like an oligarchy? Because we know everything. We're the smartest people here. They could have easily set up just an oligarchy style system of government. And they had the aptitude and the acumen and the values or the decency to think, no, we see these things, even though we have slaves. We see that this is wrong. We see that we came from Europe and there was all these problems with monarchies and dictatorships, and we don't want to go down that path. So the dream, we talk about doing this, what we're talking about right here, and people say, like Haitian on the last guest said, it seems like a dream. Well, I would argue back in that time, that was a dream that was 100 times more outrageous.
Well, and they were constantly tuned in, and everybody today is constantly tuned out.
Right.
I mean, they had to. What else were they doing besides having rotting teeth and worrying that they were going to pass away at the age of 30 or 40 years old?
That's the
Like
other
it
stunning
was,
part is how young the most of them were. Like Ben Franklin was the oldest of them, but most
yeah,
of them were like equivalents to Gen Z or young millennials.
yeah.
Like,
I'm 31. I think Thomas Jefferson was what, 43 or 42,
let's
I want to
see.
say.
I got it
I
right.
could be wrong.
No, I got it right here. Where is it? Father's ages. Thomas Jefferson in 1776 when it was founded. Alexander Hamilton was 21.
Is that not insane?
That's wild. And he was a main author of the Constitution itself. Thomas
A
Jefferson was 33.
21-year-old.
Right. At that
And the
time.
21-year-olds that I know, it's not it that's why I even feel like somebody's attacked our system. That's what it feels like. At least for like the public schools, for all the people in my class, the blue collar, redneck, you know, my mom worked at retail job. She was a manager at a retail job. My dad he worked for a lumber company. And I mean, I just, it feels like there's just been this push to try to completely divide the classes to make sure that the people that are in power stay in power and the people that aren't stay out of it.
Well, I guess it was also easier for them. They were in it, right? They had to repel the redcoats. They had to create a country. So even at a young age, they had to be dreaming. These are the issues that they were dealing with, no matter whether they were teenagers, which some of them were, like Hamilton during that time, or in their 20s. They had no choice, right? That was the future of their lives had to be predicated on that aspect. So where a 13-year-old today or a 15-year-old today, what are they interested in, right? It's like doom scrolling and seeing what Joe Rogan's going to say. And that's probably the extent of their politics or what Charlie Kirk would have said or Ben Shapiro.
I,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
Did
So,
you,
yeah,
just that the whole chain, like their food, the how they got around, I mean, wooden boats. Could you imagine coming across the Atlantic Ocean on a wooden sailboat?
right.
Just that just that thought alone to me would scare the living crap out of me. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And then they actually showed up, like they actually got here, quote unquote. And I just find that to be awe-inspiring and
Necessity.
courageous.
What is it? Necessity is the root of all invention, something of that nature.
Yeah, I think you're something like that.
Yeah. So if anyone else wants to join in on this conversation, we're really nice. I think so. Anyway, I feel like we're kind of nice. So anyone wants to join in and share your thoughts about this, because we have a very small group in here today, but hopefully that group will grow. If you haven't liked and followed, please do so, and please like on the screen and follow. Because again, this is my motive is very clear. I'm not hiding behind anything other than a screen, and I'm not hiding there either. This is not AI. It's like my real face, and it's a real background with my ridiculously neat. So I don't use it that often, because obviously if I used it as often as I should, it would look like yours, Mr. Global, not like that. So if you haven't followed yet, please do, because that's my motive, like I said, is to do whatever I can to help raise awareness that corruption in our government is the number one root cause of every single other issue that divides us. Because this is the one that shouldn't divide us. Because we all know that the big money corruption in politics is that force that takes away our representation, because our representatives, because they're being paid by special interests and corporations, they represent them. They don't represent us. Because we're not paying them, right? We don't get them elected. We don't get them into the position of being elected in a primary. Like J.D. Vance is the perfect example. He's only the vice president is because Peter Thiel has backed him since 2015, I think, with significant amount of money so he could win his previous races. And then they made a hard push to Trump when Trump was going to his thinking about who's going to be the vice president. Peter Thiel and Elon Musk basically made a hard push, and it was transactional. It's for all intents and purposes, it seems to have been transactional, right? So Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and others, David Sachs, and a few others, went to Trump and said, "You need to have this guy, JD Vance. He'll be your right hand guy. And if you do this, we're going to give you $400 million for your elections in Pennsylvania and other places." That's what Musk did, right? So there was a hard push from the Silicon Valley donors that said, that you really need to have this guy in place. And that's the hope that he would take over because he would be their puppet. So JD Vance is fully corrupted by the Silicon Valley ecosystem of what I call the corporate monarchs. And if he ever becomes president, it's going to be because they put him in a position. So if something happens to Trump and he doesn't make it through his term, well, hey, wow, look at us. Our guy is in office. Now he can really, because he's much more intelligent than Trump is. And not necessarily just intelligent, calculated. JD Vance is more calculated and more nefarious than Trump is. Trump is just transactional. He will, if you kiss up to him and you kiss his ass and you make him a deal, he'll take that deal, just like he took the deal for JD Vance to be his vice president in the first place. JD Vance, Peter Thiel, David Sachs, Elon Musk, they follow Curtis Yarvin. So if you guys aren't familiar, look up who Curtis Yarvin is. He is a guy that has a thesis or a philosophy about corporate monarchy. You can look it up on Wikipedia. These people follow his sort of vision to have a corporate monarch be the system of government that we have. And that's why JD Vance isn't in power. Yes, and JD Vance, this is interesting. So Ledzy60 says, and isn't JD Vance in bed with the Christian nationalists also? And this is what's really interesting, because I view the two most nefarious, dangerous groups as the Christian nationalists and the corporate monarchs. And it is right. There is a Christian nationalist group that basically are in charge of Project 2025, right? They're the ones that put forth Project 2025 from the Cambridge Institute and the Heritage Foundation. And it seems like the best I can see is these two groups will somehow either compete with one another to try and take as much control as they can, or they'll end up sort of managing it and working together to take over democracy. I could see it going both ways, that there'll be a power struggle between these two groups. So if you look at the Stephen Millers of the world, he's part of the Christian nationalists. If you look at the David Sachs, he's in the administration. He runs their crypto. He's part of the economic team on the crypto side. He is part of the corporate monarchs. So I don't know how well these groups get along or not, because the Christian nationals are funded by the Cambridge Institute, obviously churches, other churches, hardcore churches, and the Heritage Foundation. So they sort of get their marching orders or talking points from that group, where the corporate monarchs don't. So JD Vance might be in between these two, and I don't really know where he falls. Well, I do in terms of following the money. He definitely falls with the corporate monarchs, but he certainly seems to possibly lean towards the Christian nationals as well. So I think these are the two groups in our current administration and vying for, are positioning themselves to have the most amount of control over our government as possible. And we'll learn a lot more about these groups in the coming months and years if this continues. So does anyone else want to join in and have any thoughts even on that? So at the end of the day, eliminating corruption, I know that sounds broad, but if you can eliminate the special interests, so that includes all of those, right? That includes the corporate monarchs, that includes the Christian nationals, that includes all these super PACs and NGOs and the NRA and the ACLU and the hundreds of other special interests. Like if you can get rid of that, which I know is a huge, lift, but it is possible. They just want you to think that it's not possible. Ledzy60 says, do you feel like they're using immigration as a segue to controlling the government? Yeah, that's interesting. So I think they're using, I don't know about immigration, but obviously what happened to being Kirked, to Charlie Kirk, they're certainly using that to put pressure or fear in any sort of opposition. And that seems to be clear that they're using that fear. And that's not much different than what's happened in the past when you try to scare away any political opposition. So in terms of immigration as a segue to controlling the government, well, I think what immigration does, and just talking off the cuff here, I think immigration causes their hardcore, most loyal following to not go anywhere, to truly support them. Because if they only have power as long as their base, their strongest base continues to follow them, and that's Christian nationals and anyone that's really against immigration. So I view it as that's more this segue, like keep your base angry or supporting you. I guess that's the better word. And then you always have a base of people that will do whatever you want. But I don't know if they're using that to divide us. We have Bongo Man 6. Cool. I like taking guests. So if anyone has thoughts, I know there's not too many people in here, but guests are always nice to hear other people's perspectives instead of me regurgitating the same thing. What's up, Bongo? Uh-oh. Did you fall into a lake? Bongo, you there? All right. Oh, he's at the cash register. I hear a cash register going. All right. I'm going to kick him. Maybe he pocket pressed the button to join. All right. I was hoping.
As you talk,
Yeah.
the one thing that I notice is, well, and not that I noticed, but what was it, yesterday or today? I was reading something about the Pope, the new Pope from the Catholic Church, and I guess J.D. Vance is now Catholic, allegedly. But the Pope says that the world shouldn't have borders. And it was just something in my mind started making connections, and I'm like, which is it's odd that, they would be doing the opposite of that if they were following their religion. Because and I'm not saying you're wrong, and the Christian nationalist thing, I'm just not too in. I don't know enough about their agenda, and was it Project 2025 or whatever? Was that what it was?
Yep. Yep.
I didn't follow into that too much for some reason. I didn't see the connection as again, but I
Yep.
just I want to I guess what I'm trying to say is that I feel like it's dangerous to assume the worst. You know what I mean? Isn't it? Or am I wrong?
Well, I would say you're not necessarily wrong to, you hopefully assume the best. Obviously, realize that there's always psychopaths and sociopaths in the world. It's never going to change. Humans are not always value-oriented people.
Yeah.
But this came to light before you and I met, before you were a regular guest. There was a Christian national on one of my lives about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Maybe one of the most articulate, well-spoken individuals I've spoken to on a live or even in life in general. You probably remember
I
me
remember you
mentioning that, right?
saying this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this guy was the real deal because you can't be that articulate. I always say, if like you're going to go on a TED Talk and people like, how are people so good at going on a TED Talk? It's not, number one, they do practice, but number two, if you truly know your subject matter, and most of us know certain subject matter, if I'm going to ask you about your career and your job, you can probably speak off the cuff on it like nothing. It just comes naturally because you know your career and your business so well. So you could go up on a TED Talk and talk about your job and your life in that job without any hesitation. Most people could.
Right.
So in order to have that knowledge of subject matter and able to speak like that, you've rehearsed it and you speak like that to your other people. So I am as sure as you can be from not meeting anyone in person that person was the real deal. And that made me think that, okay, these people are serious, because he basically said, he's like, we're really serious people. And I couldn't catch him in time because he would say so many very interesting things. But that was like, we are really dangerous people. just change. We are really serious to we're really dangerous. And you probably shouldn't be doing this because something might be happening to you in the future. Like, no, I'm serious. There's like veiled threats throughout the conversation, but done in a way that was so not subtle, just well spoken. So I knew this guy was a real deal. And he was referencing other aspects of this society, if you want to call it that, or this group. And yeah, I took him for his word. Like, they're serious. And they basically made it clear that they want to return, and that's the word he used, return the United States into a Christian values-based system, which some of the Constitution was based on Christian values because those people were Protestants, so they were Christians. So there's a lot of the Constitution, but they made it very clear, again, like we talked about earlier in the vision, is the Founding Fathers made it very clear that it was a secular document, that there was supposed to be a separation between church and state, and that no law could ever be made based on religion. And then this individual also then went on to tell me so that they would make it into a Christian society, first and foremost. And then to validate his claims, he would then go on to discredit the Founding Fathers by talking very negatively about these people exalted. That was the word. They exalted in being slave owners. They,
Oh, dude.
like, and he would repeat it over and over how they exalted. And it was all meant to say the Founding Fathers aren't these really great people because they exalted in slavery. And yes, some of them did. But they also wrote documents about how they didn't want that to be the future and how many of them were abolitionists. And even George Washington, who was a slave owner, he did free his slaves upon his death. So he did, if you want to use the word exalt, but that was the times. So anyways, you can connect the dots between he's a serious group. They want to return it to a Christian national system, which basically means let's eradicate the Constitution. And in order to do that, we have to discredit all the Founding Fathers, because if we discredit them, then we can discredit the Constitution. If we can discredit the Constitution, then we can put our rules in place.
Basically, what you're saying is he's just a master manipulator.
Yes.
They're just master manipulators. They know how the human psyche works. They know how human nature works. They want to scare everybody. They want to get everybody back into that Roman Colosseum. Their civilization already fell. We're into something new. This is something new. That will never work. That Christian, and don't get me wrong, I do attend some churches every now and then, but I would rather move. Well, I shouldn't say that.
I would say it.
I would not be ruled like that, because that's a human impersonating God. That's not how this works. So it gets a little scary. And I think in the Bible it says that they're the first ones to go when there's a tribulation. So he's basically making a mark of himself. This whole Project 2025, that's just ridiculous. I mean, it sounds like he tried to intimidate you, TK.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Using very intelligent speak.
And that's the same thing that the the country that starts with an I does.
Right.
It's all just a bunch of
It's bullying
it's
bullshit.
garbage.
It's bullying. It's
It's
like,
garbage.
yeah, it's bullying and it's silly. And it's like, I don't get intimidated by nonsense. Like, come on.
There's another option, guys. There's another option. It doesn't have to be all of that. There's a third option. There always has been.
Yeah, but they don't see this is so going back to your point earlier, you want to see the good in people, but you can't reason with unreasonable people. You can't reason with people. You can't reason about values for people that have no values. Like, you can't instill values when someone's 20. They have to be instilled their values. It's like a BIOS of a computer. You have to be instilled values by your parents and at a very young age. If you don't instill it then, you'll never have values, or in almost all cases, it's going to be too late. And all those things, whether it's these religious zealots, if you want to call them, or I call them religious fascists, they have been indoctrinated by somebody in their childhood that made them believe that this is this vision for their world.
It's
Or,
psychosis.
yeah, or the only other answer is they're either psychopaths or sociopaths, one of the two,
Yeah,
right?
it's psychosis.
Yeah, it's total indoctrination and psychosis that makes people that. So I would love to see the good in people, but I think we all have to realize the humanity throughout human history has been full of rape, pillage, and plunder. I know if I probably shouldn't say that, but RPP and dictatorships, and that's just humanity. And it's not because so many people are bad. It's just that the bad people tend to get in power and will never relinquish that power. And they do whatever it takes. And they use fear and violence to maintain that control over the people that really just want to live a good life and be decent human beings for the most part.
It sounds like they're just salesmen. They're just salesmen because there's nothing up here. They're just really good at talking and they think they've got it all figured out. They're just really good salesmen. That's
Well, it's
all.
no different than race warfare or class warfare or religious warfare. Like these are all
Yeah.
parts of humanity that people have been born into these cultures that want to do race warfare, or they want to do religious warfare, or some other cultural warfare. And
Yeah,
this is,
it's like they're following it as like it's a blueprint that we're supposed to do it again.
well, if you think
Like,
about it, but history, their cultural history comes from that. And we're only working in the last 100 years or so where there's sort of a new world order and a new value system that the United States has been at the forefront of trying to instill in humanity. But there's so many cultures, like cultures change very slowly. You don't, Russian culture has been the way Russian culture has been for thousands of years. Like the cultures
right.
just don't change very quickly.
But then I guess then again, they have been around for thousands of years, right? So they've probably got to a point where there's not much more that they think they can do, or they're just completely locked in under their their regime and they can't change anything. It sounds familiar, right?
Yep.
It seems like that's what we're in right now.
You know, I always, as an entrepreneur, this is a maybe not the greatest analogy, but I've worked with people all over the world, probably at least 50 to 60 countries. Actually, even people I've worked with somebody, believe it or not, in Iran. I've worked
Yeah.
with, yeah, just a very short term, someone who wanted to get out of Iran. And I've worked with people in all over the Middle East and Australia and in Asia and China as well, South America, Central America. And I'm going to use the example of Eastern Europe. So a lot of people Eastern Europe is a place where you could get technical help for less expensive, right? So if you want someone computer program, you'd go to Ukraine or Bulgaria or somewhere in Eastern European because their rates were like $30 an hour versus, United States being $120 an hour. So I always asked them, I was an entrepreneur and they would want to work with American entrepreneurs. And I would be like, why don't you just create this company yourself? Because they had these great ideas. And it was just their history and their culture because they were, if they were born in like Slovenia or Serbia would be a great example. Like, because they're raised when they're young, they went through a war in Serbia back when they were kids, right? So if they're 20 something now, they went through a war. And their parents, just like parents in India, want them to become doctors, like and get out, become a doctor. They were like, well, we don't know if our borders are going to remain the same. We don't know. So we have to work really hard just to make money and we don't take risks. And that's why entrepreneurship in all of Eastern Europe is not considered like a real thing because it's like not endorsed by the culture because you're taking on too much risk. Their parents have
Yeah.
seen wars. They've seen wars as kids. They've seen religious fascism come through. They've seen all these things and they're constantly bombarded. So even their
Survival
governments, it's
instinct.
survival
Yeah.
instinct. So our world of entrepreneurship in the United States is very unique. And it's something that I learned to talking to people all over the world. They would rather work with me to help them do it and be a part of it versus doing it themselves because it was much too much risk.
Wow.
And it didn't hit me until speaking to not one, not five, but like 15, 20 different people in similar circumstances like that. It finally started to like, okay, this is an accepted form of creating a life for yourself in America as being an entrepreneur, but it's not an accepted way of building your life in most other countries. And that's why people from China, from India, from Russia, and you want to be an entrepreneur, you find your way to California and to Silicon Valley. Because even in American cities, New York, you might think is a big entrepreneurial hotspot. It is, but it's not. Compared to California, it's not. So even most cities and most investors where they are in cities, their risk tolerance is much lower in most US cities than it would be in Silicon Valley, where the risk tolerance is much higher. And that is also a form of culture. That culture around
Right.
Silicon Valley has very high risk tolerance. But if you go to Austin, Texas, which is also a hotbed of entrepreneurship, it's a much lower level. They don't invest in the same types of skyrocket type programs.
Right. Interesting.
So just thoughts on, entrepreneurship. So if anyone else wants to join in, please join. Mr. Global and I and Polaris, who couldn't join tonight, if we could replace all career politicians from both parties, would you vote for it? And are you in? So let me know. Thanks for all the comments. Led60, you're contributing great. So I read most of your comments. And if there's any thoughts on, we're starting out pretty small, 16,500 followers in relatively short order, though it's only been about 4 or 5 months. Obviously, we need to get to 100,000 and 100,000 to a million. And then I think we have something, like if there's something in a million. So any of you that are watching this, I would suggest, if you cared, and I hope you do, and I think you do, that's why you're here, please read the link right there, tinyurl.com/TK Civics Plan. And then maybe just as importantly is repost a couple of the top videos in my profile. Because, I got to get to 100,000 to become relevant, to start becoming relevant and get more and more people to hear the message. If you want to replace corruption, I don't talk about individual issues as much. I do have personal observations and things about issues, but I really focused on eliminating corruption because I know that's the root cause. I know the people on the left are really focusing on human rights. So it seems like the liberals have a huge motion to go towards human rights as a non-negotiable. And I agree with that. Human rights is non-negotiable. And when you talk about immigration and other things, but it seems like most of the Democratic Party or liberals are really focusing on human rights. And I think it's very noble and it has merit, and I hope it would work. But then I think we're just moving back to a blue pendulum versus the red pendulum. And I'm against both of this back and forth going between blue and red, because it's really not doing anything to unite people behind anything. They're trying to unite behind human rights. And I think, again, it has a lot of merit and a value. I just don't know if it actually will succeed, because sadly, I think there's a lot of people that won't hear that message, I guess is the best way to say it. I think they will just not care because they don't have deep value systems where they understand that we shouldn't be treating immigrants and migrants the way we are. Again, there's a better way to do this on that particular issue, just like Obama did it, and so forth. So it's because the GOP are trying to make so many away from struggling families. Let's see if anyone else swings by in this group. I was hoping this would be even a much more lively debate with more guests, if anyone wants to join as a guest. And I really want to hear from people that suggest that it will never happen or it cannot happen. That's what I was really hoping in this particular prompt, is that people would say, thank you, RJ, you're totally in. They're not for human rights, they're for additional voters. Well, there's difference, right? There's difference between human rights. I can see how you can think that. But human rights is like if you're going to deport people, do it with American values in our past. I used the analogy in the past of how we treated German POWs in World War II. We did it based on, I think it was the Geneva Convention. We treated them extremely well for people that were trying to kill our soldiers. And the way we treated them was great. And that wasn't to get more voters. That was just because we agreed to be better and to be more decent. So if you want to deport illegal immigrants, um, I'm not against that whatsoever. There's no open borders in my mind. Uh, but it's not necessarily for additional voters in my mind either. It's we should deport them, but do it in a way that's based on our values and our respecting human rights. That's not too much to ask. We're the United States of America, the richest, most powerful country in the world that has tried to set up a value system and a rules-based world order, and we're not even following our own laws when it comes to these things. That's right. Our country will be judged on how we treat the least. That's the thing. It's easy to do the wrong thing. It's hard to do the right thing sometimes, and it shouldn't be, right? So we have a values, and we're supposed to just act on our values regardless of our feelings. So, like the German POWs, we treated them because we made an agreement. So we should be judged on, and we'll always, and that's the thing that if you wanted to have a partner, whether it was China, Russia, the United States, or some other country, most people gravitated towards wanting to be partners with America because America had a strong rule of law and strong values. And Hollywood was a big part of promoting those values, American values. And, most people around the world would say, what's the greatest country that you would want to move to? And the United States was always a common thing that young people would grow up aspiring to move to America. And that was because our promotion of our values and that you're not going to be persecuted for your religion. And if you do something wrong, there's going to be proper law and order, and it's not going to be corrupt. And those things are not true today. And that's shameful on us, is that we should always adhere to our values, even if we're frustrated about something.
Sorry, I stepped outside for a minute.
Yeah, no worries. All right. So my monologue is done. I think most people ran away from the monologue, unfortunately. I think they agree with this, but the topic has run its course.
Yeah, the youth it's a Saturday night. The youth is out
Yeah.
trying to live their life, They're
Yeah, we didn't hear any Gen Zers on here tonight.
no, they're probably busy with college football and drinking and partying, and yet here we are trying to do our best to start something different.
You test all the time frames. I'm going to start doing morning and evening lives like twice a day at least going forward and do some more short videos. But since it's just a few of us left, let me ask you for tomorrow. Let's see. Oh, here's the topic. Since there's no one here, this is almost like a private convo. We have one other person who's at. It's Ledsy60. I like this guy or girl, whoever
And
she is.
and these could be the most intense convos and
Yeah.
probably the most polarizing and hot take-ish convos.
Well, I remember you said the other day that I said some things regarding the flag burning that you didn't agree with that got you angry. Which, by the
Yeah,
way, you're always welcome to share your opinions or disagree, even though it's my live. I know you'll always do it in a way that's tactful and with the right approach. So I don't mind, as I mentioned before, I never mind if you want to challenge something. Just because you're a guest of the show doesn't mean you shouldn't be challenging. So I want to make that very clear.
I
Um,
appreciate you saying that.
and I also want to make it clear, like some of the things, and you've heard me say this before, that some of the issues we talk about are my personal positions.
Yeah,
Those positions I may try and convince someone, but when it comes to actually, if we ever made this movement happen and we had political leaders join and elected officials, my personal positions on individual issues will have no play whatsoever, because the only thing I care about is that thing right there, right?
sure.
So we can always disagree on personal issues or personal perspectives about an issue. That's okay. Because I think the more we do that, the more we'll always realign, because people can get pissed off at each other or disagree with each other over a specific issue, whether it's gun rights or immigration or something. That's normal. But if we can always link it back to the ultimate goal, then I think we're doing something good.
Yeah, it always comes back to everybody's got their own idea of how everything's supposed to go
Yeah.
and what their solutions are and what their fixes to the world are. I do think about it a lot, and I'm sure that you do too. And some of mine may be a little bit more not anti-constitution, but more of just like I feel like the old way is the old way, and a lot of the youth want a new way, and that's how you get eyes, that's how you get the attention, and I don't know, I do when I get on here though, I do get a little bit apprehensive with going too far with my thoughts just because I don't wanna shoot myself in the foot, you know, as a person.
Yeah. You know, we're all going to F up. We're all going to make mistakes. And I think at the end of the day, if we just say, I might have been wrong about that. I'm sorry. Or whatever it is you need to say based on what it was, or you can double down on it, whatever. That's fine too, right? Well,
Like Rick.
just don't be MAGA double down, right?
Absolutely.
The Upstate Michael says this. I disagree a lot, but still all in for the primary goal. Thank you, Upstate Michael. That's the point. Like that is the point. Disagree all you want. Like I have a list of personal things I would love to see, my personal views, but I'm a product of my environment, and Upstate Michael's a product of his environment, and you, Mr. Global, you're a product of your environment. So our positions are going to be based on those environments we have grown up around and our experiences. So I have a list of hundreds. And initially, I wanted to put them all out there. And I realized that's stupid. And like we talked about the other day, we should have 10 different positions. No, because we're not going to be politicians. There's going to be other people that would be politicians, and they will each come in with their own positions. And the idea
Yeah.
is that they will have to, what's it,
But
homologize?
the right way though, but you keep saying this though. They're not politicians. They're only there for a year. They're public servants.
Right. Or 4 years, one term, let's say one term, right? To get the main thing done. And then,
Right.
so this is where I wanted to lead to. And since Muppet, you're here, and my Upstate Michael, you're here. Here's my thought. So we were talking last week about if this ever grew, what would we call the movement? What would we call the party? We know we're putting the cart before the horse, but it's still good to have, especially since there's only a couple people in here. I've been thinking more and more. I liked the United Party. Some people suggested the Integrity Party. Some people suggested other variations. All very good, had merit. But then I was starting to think, okay, so what would this look like in the future? So United Party was something that, it's sort of it's very on point in terms of messaging, but it's nothing sexy. It's just a little, but maybe, politics doesn't need to be maybe. But then I was starting to think, because Rick mentioned and other people mentioned, like, if you're going to disrupt the two-party system, what does that look like? And it's not to disrupt the two-party system per se. It could be one of the goals, but it's really just to eliminate the corruption of money out of politics and make sure politicians are temporary politicians. If you just did that and you went back to the two-party system and you could truly do that, you would solve like 80 or 90% of everything. But then I was even thinking, well, if your party became so, I started to think about maybe the universal party. So instead of united, so it could be uni party, united party, or universal party. And it was interesting because Japan, what are the positives you feel of the two-party system? I don't know if I feel any positives, Led Z60. I just know that, everybody blames the two-party system. It's not the two-party system. It's what's happened to the two parties. But there is inherent problems with the two-party system. So I was thinking, then this might be going way beyond again, way too early, but that's okay. A universal party. What if there was only one party? And it is actually possible. So I did some research on this today. A universal party. Now, it would just be if you want to run for office and you want to be part of the universal party, there are no litmus tests. There are no litmus tests whether you're conservative or a liberal or a libertarian. You're just someone who, now the litmus test, or lack of a better word, the test is there are certain requirements you have to do. You have to pass immigration tests like anyone else. You should understand geopolitics. You should understand the Constitution and all the oaths that you take to the Constitution and and be knowledgeable and educated about geopolitics and world history and America's place in the world and all that stuff. So that would be like the bare minimums. But no litmus test between whether you're conservative or liberal or any of that. And then, so everybody just goes into a pool and you're not labeled. You just have your positions. And this is after you eliminate corruption and you make sure that you're only going to be a temporary civic service. So now you just have a hodgepodge. So now you're in a district 56 in New York, whatever it might be, and you have these 10 people vying to be your representative. And some people will seek out the more conservative person. Some people will seek out the more liberal conservative person. It doesn't matter though. But they all have to abide by the main values and principles of the Universal Party and the requirements. And then you have ranked choice voting within that Universal Party. So now you have 10
Explain
people.
that to me.
Yeah.
Explain that to me, because you keep saying that, and I think I kind of get it, but I want to know what your definition is.
All right. So I'll explain it much better than I did the other day. So ranked choice voting, let's say you had 5 people running for a position of a certain congressional district, and you had ranked
Okay.
choice voting. You would have 5 people. When you vote for those people, you would rank them in order as Mr. Global. You would say, I want this person to win. And if he doesn't win, I want the second person to win. And if he doesn't win or she doesn't win, I want this third person to win. And then the fourth person and fifth person. So you're just ranking all the people available to you. The person with the fewest amount of votes, let's say the 5th person in this case, so you vote for your 5th person and they receive the lowest amount of votes. That person is disqualified. And now their votes are redistributed to the other 4 people based on the order of those rankings.
Okay.
So then now the 3rd person gets eliminated. The 4th person with the lowest amount of votes gets eliminated. And then their votes are again redistributed based on all the way the people rank them. So
Sure.
then you eliminate the 3rd person, and then you eliminate the 2nd person. And at the end of the day, you have the person who had the most ranked points available. It's actually a pretty simple system. I think they do it in Alaska. So
Okay.
when it came to the Universal Party, you would have this ranking, used ranked choice voting to determine who is going to represent that district in that state. And you do it for every single district across America and every senatorship, and even as your presidential candidate.
Interesting.
So the party
Okay.
other than setting up the qualifications to run for a position, would be completely out of it. There wouldn't be super delegates and any of that nonsense about delegates then voting for, you could have a super delegate in the Democratic Party. Bernie could get the most votes, but the super delegates would vote for Clinton. And then so Clinton, was able to outpace Bernie on some of the primaries. So there wouldn't be any of that. This would be a form, if you want to call it, of direct democracy within a party. So anybody that participated is ranking themselves, and you don't know how it's going to turn out because you don't know who the votes are.
Interesting. Okay.
So
I
again,
like that.
way ahead of the cart before the horse. But then I saw it today. I was like, okay, is this viable? Because I'm in the shower, you're thinking about these things.
I don't think it is cart before the horse. We have to get people's minds going. Got to get them thinking.
maybe. So the 3 other people that are here, do we have you thinking?
Hey, you got to start somewhere, you know?
Yeah, Led Z
When I
says, yeah, sorry.
when I started my business, I was really scared. I thought, I only knew so many people, but it's a slow process. But I think what's good though is that you're genuine. You're genuine in this. You want what's best. And that's the key. Most of these other influencers and people that are on TikTok, they just want to argue amongst themselves. So,
Well, the other thing is Dunning-Kruger effect. When you don't know that much, you think you know a lot. And the
right.
more you know, it's like the more research I've done over the past 5 years, and of course I'm in my fifth. I'm a Gen Xer, right? I'm in my 50s. So like any other 20-year-old, like these Purple Revolution people, I'm just a nitwit 20-year-old. I'm not wise. I have no wisdom. I don't know nothing about nothing. Right? In the Dunning-Kruger effect is this thing that says, like, if you only know this much, so you got a little circle right here, you only know this much, the circumference outside of what you know, so you got this circle here, and the circumference of outside that circle is not that big. So you feel like, okay, I know most things, and there's probably not that much more I need to know. That's how we think as teenagers, right? When our parents don't know shit, and we now know everything because we're teenagers. Really, it's the
Right.
most dangerous time. We're the most naive and most ignorant that will ever be is when we're 15, 16 years old, right? So now, as you start to learn more, that circle gets bigger. So now you got this giant circle. Now the circumference, and this is what's his name? Oh, the space guy. Anyway,
Neil
say it again.
Neil
Yes, Neil.
Armstrong?
Yeah, Neil Tyson, Neil Grayson.
Oh,
Him.
a
Yeah,
different Neil,
yeah, different
but
Neil. Neil
okay.
Tyson. So when you start to know a lot, then the circumference of what you don't know yet is much larger. So the universe outside that circumference is now much larger. So the more wisdom you have, the more you realize how much you still don't know. That's the
Right.
Dunning-Kruger effect, is that if you don't know that much, you feel like you know most of everything, and you just don't know what you don't know. And the more intelligent, more wisdom you accumulate, the more you realize how little you actually do know. So the more you actually know, the dumber you feel sometimes.
There's something that I was told or taught from a client of mine when I first started working, and he said, I forget what there's a theory or something behind it. I forget what it's like the formal name of it was, but he said if you know four people, there's a likelihood that you know everyone in this city. Because
Mhm.
as you go out of those four different people and who they know, and then who they know, and then who they know, the seven people that are in here, that's that that transfers, it transcends just the seven people group, right? Like
Yeah.
it goes out, it's like fingers, right? Like a family tree, and it just grows and grows and grows.
I think
So
on the worldwide basis, it's called the rule of seven. Is that right?
yes, that's what it was.
Yeah. So
That's what they said.
Dark Sky is new. Dark Sky, we had a bigger group here before, so welcome. Yes, I'd like to vote for it. Even better to vote to eliminate them altogether. That's what we're actually proposing. That's what we're suggesting. So thanks for stopping by. I know it sounds like a dream. It sounds impossible, but it's not impossible. It's just going to take time. So if you haven't followed me here before, please follow me here. Help me grow the community so I can become relevant, not because I want to be a content creator. I just want to try and enact that plan. So if you can see that plan, tinyurl.com/TK Civics plan, every person that likes that plan or reads that plan is one step closer to the ultimate 70 million people that will 50 to 70 million people that we'll need. By the way, did you ever understand that number? Why I chose 50 to 70 million, or I didn't choose it?
I think it's so 14. It's roughly a third of the population, if I'm not
That's right.
mistaken.
Yeah.
Or
That's basically at the minimum level, it's a third of the existing people that vote in a general election. So
right.
it's when you would have enough critical mass that it could start to happen. It's not, probably wouldn't happen at 50 million, but at 70 million, it certainly would. So there's a threshold somewhere between 50 and 70 million where you could replace every career politician in almost every congressional district. It could be even possibly a little bit more. It's hard to know. You can run different math models and you'll get different results.
I wonder how many people voted for the third party last election.
Yeah, we can find out. I know.
I'm
Well,
looking it up.
okay, great. And I'll answer some questions while you do that. So welcome again, Polaris. Saturday night, I don't know if it's college football night, but obviously a small showing, but we're having a good time talking about, the stuff we talk about. Bill's saying the same thing yesterday. So Bill Adams, if you want to join as a guest, we're really nice and we always keep it civil. You can join as a request to join and share your thoughts. I'm always for having more guests share their thoughts, whether you think it's impossible or possible. We're always learning here. and trying to figure out. So if you're saying the same thing yesterday, I'd love to hear it. And Led Z 60 in today's political environment, you could probably get 100 million in a short time. You know, there's two things about that Led Z 60 is when I had a couple of my videos went to 130, 140,000 views, I asked that question a lot. Do you think there's 50 to 70 million people? And this was early in my account, and I was expecting to get flamed by so many people in the comments. Like, this is not going to happen. You're crazy. And I got some of that. But for the most part, when I said 50 to 70 million, most people, or a large portion of people, said, oh, there's at least 100 million. There's probably 130. Some people said 150, like the majority of people, whatever it was. So I didn't think most people seem to agree that there's at least 50 to 70 million. Now, could we get there in a short time? That's the problem. That's the
Yeah.
problem. Like, there's nothing short about it. There's just something called, sorry, I'm drawing a blank. You get to a critical mass, and there's another part of critical mass. So you have to get to critical mass first, and then you achieve,
Saturation.
yeah, that's another way to put it, saturation, where enough saturation that something starts to gain momentum. And this is actually kind of an interesting segue as well. So once you get to 1 million, you start growing the wave, and it starts to take a life on its own. It's sort of like maybe a restaurant and so forth. So it's going to take a while. 100,000 people's not going to be anything. It's not linear, right? You don't grow linear. So in the beginning, you grow really, really slow, and then it might go up a little bit, and then it may take a turn up, but it's still not turning a lot. Once you get to 1 million, you start to go to a J curve where it really starts to compound the rate of adoption. And it's also related to the compound rate of adoption and critical mass. And there's still another phrase in technology when you're trying to achieve critical mass. So anyway, so that's not going to happen short until you hit that critical mass where you get 1 million people that are all on board. So, and I don't think it could technically happen with TikTok alone. The problem is TikTok is going to be taken over what seems to be by Larry Ellison and Oracle. And so you can't rely on these right-wing propaganda people who are going to suppress anything they don't like, right? Just like you can't rely on Elon Musk. He suppressed a lot of voices on Twitter. So we could be building the community here, and then it could just die because you can get suppressed or taken offline. So it has to be on YouTube as well. It has to be on other platforms, and then ultimately has to be on our platform. And I do have a platform, but it's silly to start it now because that's total cart before the horse. You have to build the movement first across various social platforms. And then once you have enough people, because you'll never open up that app, that communication platform, unless there's a lot of activity. And that activity can't be just one person's voice. It doesn't work that way. When you have a messaging app, you have to have something, whether it's a messaging app or a social app, you have to have engagement. So that's how sort of momentum and the phases of critical mass work. So how many would that make? 34% of the 4% of the population that didn't vote that would vote for change. Well, here's an interesting fact, Led Z60, is out of the 150 million people on average that vote in the general election, 75 million of those people are not registered with Republicans or Democrats. They are essentially independents, even though they might lean one way or the other. So half of the voting population is not affiliated directly with either party. So right there, that shows that 50% of all Americans that vote in a general election are not defined. They do not define themselves as anything other than independents. So right there, there's enough people just on independence alone that you would think would want this to happen. But again, it's hard to reach those people. You're going to have to do it through many different social platforms and thousands of videos and lives and everything else. So that's why I ask everyone that's watching, please follow, please repost some of my top videos. Like if you don't know where I stand exactly, all you have to do is pick one of the top 3 videos that is under my profile, watch any one of those 3, and you'll get it because it's very much aligned with this. And those are the most three popular because that's those three things that resonated with most people. Hey, Chris, what's up? If people were able to vote home electronically, I think more would work, more would vote for you. I don't think so. So I'm a technologist. I've built many technology applications. I am wholeheartedly against using technology to implement or to create functional democracy. I think it's scary as heck because all software can be hacked. The blockchain is going to be hacked eventually by quantum computing. So having any sort of computer systems, I think it's better off. And I used to be someone to think, oh, we should just use computers to do voting. It'd be so much more efficient. It's not about efficiency. It's about trust. And you can never trust software and computer platforms, especially into the world of AI. Never mind with previously when you're just worried about people. Upstate Michael, you got it right. Paper ballots in conjunction with some sort of machine that's not connected to a network, because that's where the problem is. When you're connected to a network that's connected to the internet, that's the problem. So in theory, I understand some people thinking that we should use voting digitally because it would entice more people to be able to vote, but it's a huge mistake. There's no way. We should, until we know we have something that's guaranteed to work, you should never change, the old KISS philosophy. Keep it simple, stupid. Right? And have human beings.
It's a good one.
Yeah, have human beings that just sit there and validate each person, one from the Republican Party, one from the Democratic Party, one from the Universal Party, and they all have to agree that that was, not a hanging Chad.
Hilarious.
Polaris, welcome back. What verification method can we trust?
Who says your paper ballot is counted properly?
Well, you can disagree with that, but the paper ballot's counted properly because in today's election system, you have one person from the Republican Party and one person from the Democratic Party that has to agree that that paper ballot was counted properly. Otherwise, it goes into a dispute bin. So it's not foolproof by any means, but at least it has two sides of the coin that have to validate it versus
What if you had to? Yeah, go ahead.
versus like a
Sorry.
massive computer system that can run a malware or someone can interject and change all the votes.
What if there was like a like it was a multi thing, like you had to do paper and then you had to do an electronic vote on your phone that was somehow tied to your social security or whatever, as well as like a Scantron or something else.
Like a paper ballot and then a phone validation, but then I guess you have more points of potential failure and more points of dispute, possibly. So
Or,
Polaris,
well, yeah, to see if there was any meddling in the system.
yeah.
Because obviously paper in one's, I mean, in my opinion, would probably be the most accurate, but then you have to rely on people to to read that,
But that's
which,
how we've been doing it for 250 years, and it's relatively been successful,
right.
right? So I want to answer the question. It's going to sound like a repeat to some of the people that are here. How are those people chosen? So Polaris, I know you have a good mind for this. You've been on the show plenty of times. I think you're referring to when I mentioned the Universal Party. So this is the quick idea. So I'll if there was such thing as a universal party. So let's say we built 50 to 70 million people that wanted to eliminate corruption. And then you end up forming a party. Again, this is cart before the horse, but we're not many people here, so we're talking about it. So if you had 50 to 70 million people that wanted to eliminate corruption and you got those people together to disrupt both parties, you might start a universal party. It could be independence or something else, but we use the idea of a universal party. And this universal party would not have a litmus test for any of the candidates that wanted to run in any district. So it wouldn't be a litmus test to, are you a conservative or you're liberal? Where do you stand on gun rights? Where do you stand on this? That's irrelevant. You have certain qualifications that you have to meet, meaning pass an immigration test, understand geopolitics, the American world order, self-rule, an oath to the Constitution, whatever these requirements are to be part of the Universal Party. But to be part of the Universal Party is not where do you stand on gun rights? Where do you stand on abortion? That's not part of that litmus test. So you then become a candidate in the Universal Party. And let's just use the number of 5 people. So let's say you had 5 people running for a congressional office. And they could be various. Some could be conservative, some could be liberal, whatever it might be. They're running for a seat in the Universal Party to represent a district. How would you choose the winner? You do that through ranked choice voting within the Universal Party. So if you had 5 candidates, then those 5 candidates, you'd rank them in order. Each voter would rank them in order who they want to see in office. And I'm pretty sure you're familiar with ranked choice voting, but for anybody else that's watching that's not, if the person that comes in with 5th place with the least amount of votes, their votes are redistributed to the other 4 people above it. Then the person with the least amount of votes in the 4th place gets eliminated, and their votes are then redistributed to the top 3 people, and so on and so forth until you get to a winner by ranked choice voting. And that winner would most likely be either conservative or liberal based on whatever their constituency in that particular congressional district is leaning towards, right? The person who just appeals to that person based on they could talk about issues, but they would always have to adhere to this thing, right? The first thing would have to be the 28th and 29th Amendment to eliminate corruption. All elections have to be publicly funded. And 29th is that they have to be term limits and they only have to be temporary public servants. So that's, hope that answers your question. That's how they would be chosen in this conceptual Universal Party pie in the sky idea that we're talking about. And I've been doing some research on it, and I thought it was something I just thought of, and there'd be a lot of reasons why it couldn't work. And there are some, not that it couldn't work, but there are some hurdles. The biggest hurdle in this would be education. Educating those people who are following you is the number one thing, and sort of culture. So a universal party is theoretically possible. It could work in today's practice, today's world, but it would take obviously institutional reforms and high trust in civic culture. That's the main. So that again, it's not impossible. It just requires changing culture and norms, which is hard for people to do because we're just all kind of slow when it comes to change, right?
Good issue is getting 2/3 of those people into Congress for Article 5.
That's the Convention of States, right? So, yes. Oh, that's true. I always think about it. You're a really good point, Polaris. That idea is actually even better. So, Article 5, Convention of States, I believe he's referring to. I've always been thinking if you had 70 million people, you replace all career politicians, and then that would be the only way to do it. But your suggestion is even better because now you're only requiring 2/3. But those are state legislators, not federal. Oh, I think Convention of States is either state legislators or representation, your senators. How does...
Sorry, my phone's dinging. I don't know if you can hear that.
I can't, no. So I just want to make sure I get this right because there's 2 ways to amend the Constitution through the constitutional states in Article 5. Congress proposes an amendment by 2/3 vote in both the House and Senate. Okay, right. So that's what he's referring to. Or it could be state legislators. I have problems with that word, legislatures. Agree. So he's referring to 2/3 of vote. So you're actually making it 33% easier. Because even if you didn't have all replacing all career politicians, if you get 2/3, which may only require the lower number, like 50 million people to support it, to maybe, whatever that math works out to, and it depends on, how they bunch up in different regions and so forth. So 2/3 of Congress. So thank you, Polaris. Thank you for making me think about it because that's not something I've thought about before. And it actually lowers the bar by a fair amount. Still a big deal, still very hard, but it lowers the bar.
Do you think there's enough states currently? Like which states would vote for that?
Well,
The ones that aren't completely corrupted.
I also think it comes down to some religious things. Like I know a lot of wonderful, very conservative people that I consider close friends, but a
Yeah.
lot of their influences come from the church. And so more rural
Mhm.
areas, not because of corruption necessarily, I think because of education and how influential church can be, could be an issue. That's just off the cuff. Uh, Jules says, "Oh, welcome back, Jules. Love having you here. I think you were online recently as a guest, and you brought a really good perspective to a lot of things. Does this exist anywhere else, or is this a completely new idea?" Um, Good question. There are single-party democracies, and I'm not even suggesting this universal party thing would have to last and endure for hundreds of years. It actually just has to get the job done initially. It doesn't. It
Yeah.
most likely will fragment into other parties over time. That's okay, because as long as you initiated the 28th and 29th Amendment, you got the job done. But Japan has a single party democracy with a constitutional republic. So it is a single party. So whether it's no parties or a single party, you can argue they're almost one and the same. So it does exist, but I don't know if you can take Japan as a highly homogeneous country. It's not diverse. It's much smaller. Well, still very big. What, they got 110 million people, I believe it is. So I don't think you could really lean on that example as if that could work here. I think you still need something. But again, total off the cuff thoughts. Maybe plans should include developing candidates who support the movement. Yes, that's part 3 of the plan. So recruiting candidates who support, again, it could be a universal party, it could be an independent party, it could be taking over parties, but you definitely would need to recruit candidates. And, I put that question out in some of my videos, and the comments there as well, there was like no shortage of millions of Americans that would want to be temporary politicians to return America to its values. I don't think recruiting candidates is going to be the problem. Actually, I'm sure of it. Just so many comments I received. Now, I'm not saying those people were qualified, right, or knowledgeable enough, but again, they have to just meet the requirements that we would set forth that are, again, non-litmus test based. So it's building enough awareness to show that it's even growing and has even potential validity. Then I think people would step up, and then you could start recruiting. Like, again, I think that's sort of cart before the horse. Across the U.S. But again, we're all doing this our first time. So how does it actually work in practice? Everything is subject to change. Every opinion you have or observation, like you have to sort of navigate towards that North Star, and it's definitely not going to be a straight line. Upstate Michael says, "Don't reinvent the wheel, just force the change." Well, I don't know, force the change. Yeah, force the change with a lot of people, but definitely don't reinvent the wheel. So that's the big thing I have. I know Polaris has, you guys are great ideas about more representation for having more representatives in terms of how large our country is. But then we get to start reinventing the wheel, I think. I always want to be able to defend the Constitution as it's written as much as anything else, because once you start going outside of those guardrails, then you're going to have so many people saying, why are you trying to change the Constitution? Why are you trying to change the system? I would say stay within the guardrails of the Constitution, because then you're always standing on the basis of respecting how knowledgeable and how incredible that document is. And you are not trying to work outside of the guardrails or the boundaries, because then I think people will target you, and rightfully so, because then, if you're a Christian national and then you want to say the Constitution should be a Christian document, that's the same thing they're doing. They're going outside the boundaries of the Constitution. And it's those guardrails that we can all agree on is why we should not be a Christian national society. It's a secular document. Once you start saying, well, maybe it should be because they were Protestants, so they were Christians, and they valued Christianity, but they put together a secular document, so it's not too far of a leap to say maybe we should be a Christian a nation. That's an absurd way of thinking, but it's a real way of thinking.
North Star Polaris. Yeah, that's funny.
Oh, yes, that is funny. Oh, sorry, Polaris. Yeah, sorry, I don't know the points of your plan as well as I should. Yeah, that was step 3. It's only 5 steps. It's an easy read. I think it's an easy read. Mr. Global, did you read it?
I did not read the whole thing, I'll be honest, but I did go over your highlights, your bullet
You know,
points.
all you young TikTok bros, if it's not, distilled down into 10-second TikTok, no one.
Well, here, I'll read it.
I'm
We can read
kidding.
it right now.
No, it's too
I
long to read. It's a 5 to 8 minute read.
I'm a fast reader, TK.
Yes, upstate Michael, but yes, amend the Constitution to force term limits and campaign finance. And that's what amendments are for, right? They are not working outside the guardrails. It's working within the guardrails of the Constitution, because the Constitution was developed to evolve over time, and you use amendments to do that. And that's why when I propose a 28th and 29th amendment, it's all completely already within the confines of what the Constitution allows you to do. So absolutely. I mean, we can all think of, we could all think we're so smart that we can think of better forms of a better system, but then we would all be working under the Dunning-Kruger effect, thinking that we're smarter than, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Hamilton, and all these other people that spent years. It was 11 years between the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson, and the Constitution. It took 11 years in between those two documents. And so these individuals of the Founding Fathers weren't just thinking about it for a year or two. They thought about it before the Declaration of Independence, because as they were leaning towards that, or winning the war against the British. And then it took another 11 years to codify a system of government. And we're talking about really well-educated scholars and lawyers of their time. Polaris Project to start a new political party. Oh, okay. Got it. I know. Sorry if I went off on a tangent, but I'm just trying to read between the comments. Starting a new political party will be active only in state and local elections. It doesn't need to register. The FCC determines the committee has demonstrated enough natural or state activity. Yeah. That's step 3 of the plan, is to determine whether you'd run as independents or as a political party. It requires probably around $10 million, which is not a lot of money at all when you're looking at scale. If you have 10 or 50 millions of people supporting you, there are organizations that also help you get on the ballot in every country, in every state, like the Green Party is now. So there's a lot. You'll definitely deal with legal challenges, because the two parties will fight you and try and get you off the ballots, and all those things will happen. But if you have the numbers and you have the money, the numbers and the money, you can definitely do it. So I don't know if that's where you're going with it, but that's just what came off the top of my mind. Welcome, Sweet James. Sweet James. Oh, by the way, we asked this question, but we never answered it the other day. Of all the founding fathers, and depends what you consider founding fathers. There was like 13 of them originally, and then ultimately there was like 50 something involved in the Constitution in various aspects. How many of the founding fathers became presidents of the United States? So there was 2 of the original founding fathers, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. And then some people would include other key figures, sometimes considered part of the founding fathers. And if so, that rises to 5 of the presidents were founding fathers. But that was interesting, because most people that were part of the founding fathers were never politicians or never became the president. So if you conclude the 5, it's George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and James Monroe, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th presidents. What if we start with petitions, local advocacy? So I don't know how you do that. How do you... I would love to be wrong, but I just see like if some social media influencer can have tens of millions of people, it takes time to get there. Like a lot of work, a lot of time to get there. But once you have influence and you become relevant, then you can take action. Like it's so easy. If you want to become an endorse a product, for instance, it's just a bad example. You have to have enough people watching you regularly in order for them to follow you. Like if you're selling makeup, right? Like at some point, I think you still first have to have relevancy and does petitions that doesn't have a face or a well-known brand or something associated with it. Because you get there's awesome petitions that you can get someone walk up to you on the street and says, "Hey, sign this petition," and you're like, "I don't want to do it. I don't know what this is about. I haven't had time to research it." Right? So that 10 million isn't local though; they could be global even. Yeah, we're
Well, I
just
mean, that's a global interest. I mean, at the end of the day, it kind of is. I mean, everybody wants a strong America, and the only way that we're going to be our strongest is if we go back to what it was supposed to be in the first place.
yeah. It's interesting you say it. I know you use the word everybody loosely, but you always think that some people, like in Central America, we've done so much harm to Central America and South America that those people hate America. They don't.
We didn't. I didn't. You didn't.
Yeah.
That's we may be in the under the umbrella of that name, but I didn't do that. I didn't have slaves. I, you know,
Right. You weren't
you
the
can
CIA that got into the Banana Republic and created Banana Republic, right? And the banana trade wars. But I always get the impression that most people, well, I always used to think that probably most people had a negative where we've been involved with and where the United States has done harm in the past, that those populations probably dislike America in many ways. And they may, but for the most part, they truly still understand that America's vital position and influence is generally more good than bad by a long shot.
and the way that I viewed that though is, I mean, I've imagined that conversation. It's like I'm sorry for what my predecessors did to you. I'm genuinely sorry. I mean, it's you can say that to the Native Americans too.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do that for anybody, but I'm genuinely sorry, but this is the route that we're trying to go now, and we're hoping you come along for the ride or whatever, Like, it's really that simple as to just apologize. Now, not everybody takes apologies, especially if the actions then come back up again, right? Like it
Right.
has to be you address it, you fix it, and it never happens again. Because then what's the apology for?
Yeah. Yeah, and the United States has been far from perfect implementing its values equally across all different countries and races of people, etc. But at least it had the values. They've been abused by the government in many times. But
Yeah.
if the population was paying attention, they would correct it and vote those people out of office. And the values in when it comes to a nation are not always enforced the same way, but the goal is to try and continue to abide by those values all the time. And you can only do that if you have good people in government. Like if we had really decent moral human beings in government through the last 250 years, we would have adhered to those values every single time and we wouldn't have done those harms, those hardships on other people. But because you had bad actors within government, because that's what government is nothing but people. And when you have bad actors in government, they do bad shit.
Yeah. Well, they don't have any accountability.
Right. Right.
There's no there's no thresholds for what the punishment is, because obviously, well, I mean, there's supposed to be, but we haven't really been doing that.
That's the thing I wanted to throw into the top list of requirements after the 28th and 29th Amendment is something regarding accountability for anyone that obviously doesn't who enriches themselves or does something in government. Like you can't, even at the corporate level, let's say CEOs, companies who do something knowingly, let's say the cigarette wars, cigarettes were knowingly killing people and poisoning people, and they hid that information. There needs to be accountability through regulation, even at the corporate level. You can't just have a CEO and say, oh, sorry, we're going to give you a whole bunch of money now and we're not going to jail. And the same thing could be said about the 2008 housing crisis when there was so much fraud. Is there needs to be possibly, as another thing, is accountability in the Constitution about breaking laws, ethics, or certain things, whether it's at the corporate level or at the government level.
You scare them straight.
Yeah, and it
I
has to
mean,
be something that doesn't have political, like there has to be a independent tribunals or something that's not political. It can't be congressional things because we know that doesn't work, right? There has to be something else.
yeah. And what does that look like?
Right. It's probably everything's complicated, but the other times, most of the time, the best solutions are quite simple and elegant. So can't have all the answers, right?
You just have to have good people. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the answer. Just be a good person, you know? Like you said the cigarette wars, the other thing that came up to my in my mind was like asbestos.
Asbestos, right? Good one.
I mean, that is terrible. I mean, it was in everything, and they knew that it was bad. And I don't know why we don't have some sort of government program to get rid of all that stuff. Like some sort of incentive package to help people that have a house that has those asbestos in it to get rid of it because it's
Yeah.
or like Flint, Michigan with their lead pipes,
Yep.
like um our
Upstate.
food, our food.
Our food, horrendous. The things that are in our food, the red gums and blue
Yes.
gums and all that shit that we know is not healthy, right? Upstate
Yeah.
Michael brings up a great point too. Why the insurance CEO was unalived, right? Like that's society taking matters into their own hands, basically saying, you're gonna not cover 40% of all your people that are sick, and you're now unaliving people, and it just takes one person to say, nope, I don't agree with that. Now you get vigilante justice, which is why the guy has a cult following almost now, right?
Yes, he does.
Yeah. But you don't hear anything about it in the news, rarely in the news, because they don't want his name out there because they know his following will continue to grow.
Yep.
Welcome, Matthew Boston. We're winding down here, talking about some interesting topics. So tomorrow, if anyone out of the 4 people that are left, man, we've been on a long time tonight. Saturday night, college football. Should flag burning be illegal, or illegal? We covered that yesterday. Here are a couple topics. Would you support a single? Oh, see, that's the one. That's the universal party to disrupt both parties. What do you think about that? Would you support a singular uni party or universal party to disrupt both parties? Let me explain and tell me your thoughts. It's very similar to today's topic.
Yeah. I like it.
How about this one? This is partisan. So I'll forewarn you, but I think it has relevancy because you'll get a lot of thoughts on this from the MAGA side. Do you think Trump is using the government and the courts to go after political or to suppress political opposition? Tell me why you agree or don't. The reason, sometimes I think we have to talk about issues versus is always about eliminating corruption because it goes towards corruption, right? Again, everything leads to corruption. And I always try and connect the dots between if you're trying to suppress political opposition, and people will bring up Biden, and that's fine. We can talk about that as well. So there's always going to be a deflection to Biden. What about Biden? Why did his Justice Department go after Trump for taking away the classified documents? It's a valid conversation. I think they are different, and I can make that claim, but not everybody has to agree. But you are now having all types of, you're going after James Comey that's going to fail. Don't have to like the guy. So, what do you think about that topic?
Him using political power to punish
Yeah,
his.
is the Trump administration trying to suppress political opposition through the courts and government actions?
I think, remember your circle? It takes a big mind for someone to comprehend that. And I think sometimes I wonder if your target market is more of the millennials or the Gen Zers. And maybe sometimes I feel like maybe that's not something that they usually speak on.
You're right. The Gen Z and millennials are the most important group that we could have in here. So if you think of
That's all. But I love the topic because I could go on to that topic. You shrink your bubble down, you know what I mean?
yeah. But a lot of people are talking about negative things about Trump and using that to grow their channels. I was
Right.
thinking about doing what Polaris said about talking about the Purple Revolution. But after doing all my research and watching their videos, like I want nothing to do with them. Just I know you could leverage because it's a popular topic on TikTok, but I don't know if I want to. I don't want to disparage anybody, and I could not disparage them in some way or discredit them. I don't think I could.
Well, I think it might still be beneficial because they obviously have a similar thought process. You have the action plan, so we're all kind of on the same page, thinking about the same thing.
Did you watch their
They've
videos yet? You may have not.
I did watch a couple of all of them. The last guy I liked a lot, and the military guy.
Well, let me give my thoughts on this. Since there's just a few of us here. When it comes to all three of them, they're all come from the right. All three of
Right?
them. Honey Badger, the least right, but she's a young girl from Utah that used to be part of the Mormon church, so basically in a cult.
Oh, nice.
Nice girl. Clueless, though, when it comes to civics. Well-meaning, though.
Right.
Get it. But they're all three coming from the right. I don't come from the right. I come from the independents, always have been. So when I look at them, it's like, okay, they're seeing some misgivings. I just don't see them like attracting moderates and never mind people on the left because I think they have a history. But anyway, when it comes to the young kid, Hunter, what's his name? Hunter, Howell.
Yeah.
Howell. That guy, I've been on this earth a long time. I've always had a good judgment for people's character. That kid doesn't care about anything other than growing a following. He's only there for influence. He's hoping, the way he speaks and everything, he's just social media
Playing the
generation.
algorithm.
He's playing the
Playing the
algorithm.
algorithm.
That there is no values in that kid whatsoever.
Well, but that's the thing, though, is that's their strength.
Right. Maybe.
And that's maybe not necessarily, I'm not saying it's not our strength. It's just that's what they're focusing on. I think we're very pragmatic. We're very logical, pragmatic individuals.
Yeah, but being genuine, like everything that kid does is not genuine. You just see,
Yeah,
I've always had a good judge for
a
people's morals and
flip-flopper.
character. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have the military guy who has the least amount of following, by the way. Did you know that?
I didn't look at their following.
I did. So I looked on Social Blade. So Friendly Honey Badger has 143 followers, 143,000 followers. She has the most, I
Wow.
think. She's been doing this since 2024. So she's been a year and a half-ish, almost a year and a half. So she's got a nice following for a year and a half. I think a lot of it, her older videos are about the Mormon church and things of that nature. I don't know if they were always political. So
Right.
she's got a pretty big following in a year and a half. That's pretty good. I think she's the most well-meaning. Then you have Hunter Howell, who has 74,000, almost 74,000. And he's been doing this since January 2023. So it'll be 3 years in January.
Wow.
216 followers. So he's been doing this for a while. He's finally getting to a level where he's probably making some money, but it took them a long time to get there. And then you have Restoring Gold America. Restoring Old America. Ooh, right there. Purple Revolution 2025 is his username. And his name is Restoring Old America. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, I guess. You can view it as sometimes negatively condemnation. Like you just worry about is that too much religious, like restoring, I don't know. Anyway, he only has 13,000 followers, and he's been doing this since March of 2022. So all of them, Honey Badger is the biggest, probably the most well-meaning. Restoring Old America, meaning the Purple Revolution guy himself, seems like a nice enough guy, but he doesn't know much about civics. He has his own normal sort of politic minds of some of the, and he was hardcore MAGA. And to me, he's just always whining. He just always seems.
Well, the only thing that I was gonna say is they may have a big following, but Jesus only had 12 disciples. So, and he got a lot done with
Yeah,
those
yeah.
12 guys. So it's not necessarily the quantity, but the quality of the followers, right? So
Yes. But they're all small, by the way. I mean, I view still
very small.
130,000 is still tiny. Like you're
Yeah.
not 140,000 for a Honey Badger. And she's young. And the thing is, these two people are so young, they don't know what they don't know. Like you said that best not too long ago. So you just, yeah, they could attract Gen Zers, but there's no leaders in there. There's no leaders at all.
No.
No, they're all well-meaning, but I mean, they can't, they've only been working together for a few weeks and already infighting about, because they can't agree. Because they don't even know what the word revolution means.
It's an evolution.
Oh, really?
We're gonna revel in the evil.
Yeah. So that's why I didn't really want to cover them too much at all. I just didn't know. But maybe I'm still torn on it, whether we should discuss that at all. It would be self-serving. I'll put it right out there. I would only be doing it because maybe we can steer people in a more
Yeah.
in a proper direction.
What about the question, do you think we can salvage the Constitution or do we need to start fresh?
Oh,
Because that would,
spark.
oh yeah.
And obviously, I just want to make sure that we would never be advocates of doing something other than salvaging the. No, it's not salvaging. I got what you mean. I think we may have to word it, or maybe not. Maybe that's the right one.
Restore. Well, I mean, yeah, it is a salvage job. I mean, it's wrecked. It's completely wrecked right now.
The
And
Constitution's not wrecked. It's just not being followed.
well, that's the argument though, is if it was such a great, well, and I'm not saying I'm playing devil's advocate.
Okay.
If it's such a great document, then why are we in the position that we're in now? Is what I hear them saying.
Yeah, that's the easy answer. People.
People, right?
It's a people problem. I mean,
Well,
because most
evil.
people, it's because most people don't, and I don't blame them. They don't read the Constitution. They only know a little snippet here and there. They don't know the Federalist Papers, Anti-Federalist Papers, how the Constitution, where the chronological order of these things happening from the Declaration to the Constitution, who wrote them, to the Federalist Papers, etc. I know.
I don't.
It's not easy.
I don't.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've looked at any of that
Yeah,
stuff.
this is like 8th grade shit that you're not even paying attention to in 8th grade.
Well, then
8th grade
you've
is
got
like
some.
girls or stuff.
I've got 50 different passwords I have to remember for all of my my emails and the social media, and I can't. I mean, my mind can only hold so much.
Well, I view it as this. Think about anything new that you start. We all suck and hate learning something from the start. Like we're just bad. You start a new sport, you know what? You're going to stink. And we don't like
Yeah.
doing things we stink at. Like
Yeah.
we run away. If we're not good at something, it means we haven't practiced it. And if we're not good at it, we just don't want to do it because it's infuriating, right? It's demeaning. So if you want to play a difficult sport, whatever it might be, golf, etc., you're going to stink. And so it's not going to be fun.
No. Well,
So
what is it? 10,000? What is
10,000
it? The
hours.
rule of 10,000.
Yeah. So anything we start learning, like in 8th grade, and you learn about the Constitution, it's so overwhelming. There's so much words and there's so many people, and it's not easy. But once you get over the hump, you start to realize, and you start to feel, I understand like the format, the order, why it was. And then all of a sudden, now you start to just like a funnel, right? You're like a funnel. You just start reading more and more, and everything starts to make more sense. But we learn it in 8th grade just at a superficial level. And then we just hear certain passages or certain snippets of it from time to time. And we just hear Lincoln, he did slavery, and Washington was the first guy. And there was like, there's 47 guys in between there. Like, I don't know any of them.
And then also when I was learning about that was probably in the 2008 crisis.
Oh,
So
right.
that came with its own things. So you're trying to go to school and your house life is terrible because nobody can afford anything, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of trauma. That's one of the things in my black book though is education reform,
Yep.
and that should be something that is more. I feel like it should be almost every year. I don't think it should just be like 8th grade. It should be like every grade. We
Yeah.
should be learning about that
We should be
over
learning
and
about that
over and
over and
over.
over, and like how to personal finance and parenting,
Yep,
or all those, like, real life skills should be taught every year.
exactly.
So do you mind if since there's 4 people remaining, I'll give you the real cliff notes of the chronological order of these documents, because I think it'll
Go
really
for it.
set stage. Okay. So for the 4 of you that are left, if you're not familiar, I'm going to give you the chronological high level, which I think should be interesting. So there was the Revolutionary War against the Brits. Of course, the founding fathers and the fledgling United States, what do they call Federalists at the time? They won the war, right? We beat the Brits. And Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. And it's not part of the Constitution. It was the first document. And it wasn't just a vision. It was a legal document sending out notice to all the European powers and every other power around the world saying, we are now the United States of America. We are declaring independence from the Brits, from the UK, from the Brits at the time, from the British. We are now our own country. Don't mess with us. And it was a legal document. And so it wasn't just some paper. And Thomas Jefferson wrote that. Primarily, he's the one who wrote that. But that didn't create a government. We had these ruling elites, the founding fathers, and the 13 colonies that still were ungoverned relatively. They were running themselves. There was no formal government. So over the next 11 years, we were trying to figure out what this new United States of America is going to look like. And during part of that time, there were a group of the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, Hamilton, and others, that wanted a strong central government. They were for a federal government, so that the 13 colonies to come together. And they gave the government, in their views, they wrote the Federalist Papers, which were a series of articles placed in newspapers all around the 13 colonies, that they would write articles from Thomas Jefferson to Hamilton arguing why they needed a strong federal government. We need to be able to protect ourselves. We need to have a unified military. We need to have unified commerce, being able to trade with the 13 colonies. And this is why we need a unified government. The problem is there were people that were all for states' rights, no different than it was today. And they were called the Anti-Federalists. So after the Federalist Papers started to be published, the Anti-Federalist Papers started to be published in newspapers as well. They were a little less organized. And they were all for, no, if you have a strong federal government, there's going to be eventually tyranny. You guys, we're going to have to worry about the federal government taking over our rights. So we must have individual rights, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, all these things. and the states need to be responsible for a lot of their own decision making. So over these 11 years, these Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers were trying to convince the public, this is what we need. We want more state control. We want more federal control. This happens to this day. Eventually, they agreed. The Anti-Federalists and the Federalists came together with the Bill of Rights, which ended up being the first 10 amendments. So there was the Constitution that was being written by the Federalists, essentially, proposed by the Federalists. And then there was the Anti-Federalists who put together the Bill of Rights and said, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the Second Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, and so forth, through the first 10 amendments. So after the 11 years, it was agreed that was the right balance between states' rights and federal rights if you incorporate the first 10 amendments into the Constitution. And then they also said, well, if there needs to be more amendments in the future, we're going to allow that to happen. This is an open document. So as things change, we can add more amendments. And that's when the Anti-Federalists and Federalists came together, had the meeting in Philadelphia, which was a secret meeting, but it was not a secret meeting to do anything nefarious. It was just so that they could focus for how many days? Was 11 days to put together the full Constitution and agree to it. As soon as the meeting in Philadelphia was done, they published the new Constitution throughout the country, starting the next day, to take input and to let people know throughout 13 colonies that this is what's happening, and to take feedback. And then it ended up being ratified by all 13 colonies. All 13 colonies said, we're in, we're good. And that, in short, is the whole chronological order of the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers, Anti-Federalist Papers, and then the Constitution being created. And that's all. That's basically all to the story at a high level.
I wonder, oh, part of me wonders if it's like a breakaway government that almost gets created inside of the United States that follows the Constitution again and basically pushes the current situation out.
Well, that would be something like what we're proposing with a new party or something, right?
I,
It's
I mean, yeah.
not pushing him out, for lack of a better word. What's up, Scott?
How you doing tonight?
I don't know if it's Scott, but Scott All, or I just went short. Good. How you
Yeah,
doing?
Scott Alexander.
Welcome to
Alexander's the middle name.
welcome. There's only 5 of us in here, but we've been obviously jabbering away for a while, and we're always welcome guests to join.
Yeah, I just popped up and saw your little prompt up there and heard the last speaker for the last minute, I guess. So I'm really not up to everything you're talking about, but um, I like the idea of the um, 6 years for the House of Representatives and 8 years for a senator. Do you guys like that proposal?
It sounds like it has merit. I wouldn't be against it, other than that it changes the term lengths, which would be something that is one extra step. But yeah, I like that. I think that's a good length of time, maybe the proper length of time. Instead of 4 years and 6 years, you're suggesting 6 years and 8 years, a single term.
Yeah, well, no, that's what Trump was suggesting was 6 years for the House of Representatives and only 8 years for senators.
I don't
And I
like
was
the
just
number
wondering.
6. I like the number 7. Something about the number 6 I don't like.
What? You're going to go an odd number?
I like 7.
I don't know
Six
if
is
I
okay.
don't know if the
Six is
term
okay as long as there's not two other sixes to go along with it.
That's true.
I don't know if the length matters as much as, obviously the length doesn't matter as much as making sure those politicians cannot be corrupted by money from special
By
interest corporations,
bureaucracy.
and
Yeah, by bureaucracy.
well, by those, by money, right?
Yeah, by the lobbyists that,
Right.
that do all the harm.
Right.
And then they lobby these politicians, all our congressmen and senators and everyone, and they all have to have staffers, and they all get people in there doing jobs that they're really nothing to do, and they're getting paid, and it's just kind of a money laundering system to me. If you ask me, the way they do it, the way it
Well,
works.
I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. I think you have to think about it. Yes, the corruption part is the biggest problem. I would agree with that. But when it comes to having staffers, writing bills, which right now most of the time the special interests are writing the bills and drafting the bills. Foreign agents, special interests, religious groups, they are like Project 2025. They are creating legislation. It's not the congressional leaders that are creating the legislation. A lot of congressional leaders don't even know what's in most of these bills, right? Because it's not easy writing legislation that's, 50 pages, 100 pages long. So they're basically being presented by their party leaders with legislation that's been oftentimes written by all types of special interests. Now, if you are a congressional leader and you have to do town halls and you're meeting with people and you have to vote on things, you have to be informed about these things. And I would say having staffers and even lobbyists, not paid lobbyists, not paid by lobbyists by corporations, but having,
Maybe I used the wrong term by saying staffers. Maybe I shouldn't have said staffers. But I have a feeling that like mayors and politicians like that, all the way down to the city and state and city levels, they all have too many jobs that they give to people that don't even show up to work, and they're getting 300,000 a year,
oh
and the
yeah,
job
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
even really exist.
right.
And
Okay.
all of that is really happening on both sides, not just Democrats, not just Republicans. It's happening on both sides.
Yeah. You're having nepotism. And of course you have, government jobs that are being paid, contracts. It could be government contracts. It could be official government positions. And yeah, money is being fraudulently
In my
spent.
eye, right now, at this point in history, because I'm 64 years old, so I've kind of been around, and what I'm seeing, it comes and goes. Democrats do it more than Republicans, then Republicans do it more than. Right now, Democrats are doing it more than Republicans. It seems like that to me. I don't know. I could be wrong, but because you can never believe the news that you're getting reported.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
you
I
also
get
have
most
your
of
own
my information.
biases, right? You've also
Yeah,
been,
I get my information basically from social media and platforms like this, and making my own decisions. I
right.
can't believe what I hear on the news.
Right.
Never again.
Right.
Well, I'd be worried about, that. Yes, I agree with you about the media. They always have their narratives, but you also have to understand the media is controlled by, for the most part, a very small group of individuals. And that includes
George
social
Soros
media.
and company.
Oh, no, no. Well, you have Fox that's
Yeah,
owned by the Murdochs. You have Newsmax that's owned by a right wing or far right wing.
which is all owned by what two companies? There are two companies that own all of that.
Well, if you actually do, so by the way, just so you don't know who I am. I'm a fierce independent. I'm just using the counter argument here. Um, the majority of content on social media and on traditional media that's being absorbed, consumed, is more right wing these days than it is actually left wing. So while CNN and MSNBC are two,
How do you figure that?
you just do the math on ChatGPT. Say do an analysis of all the media networks, social media and media networks,
Okay,
and
well,
who,
you might be right. The social media, like the TikToks and stuff, are you get more of your right wing stuff,
yeah,
and on
yeah.
the news media you won't. Okay. I get what you say.
Yeah, there's
I
always been this belief that the news media is controlled by the left. And when you talk about absolute traditional old school network news media, that is true. It's still true to this day. But when you look at total amount of consumption, the amount of information that's being consumed, it actually leans more right these days. But that's irrelevant. Your point was that you're not sure what to trust, and that is true. And you also need to be careful on obviously social media when it comes to whether it's the left and the Dean Withers and the Parkers and the David Pacmans versus on the right, the Charlie Kirks, the Ben Shapiros, the Jordan Petersons, the Joe Rogans, the Candace Owens, and those sort. They all have their own motives, mostly to enrich themselves.
Hmm.
So
I don't know. I find out a lot of information from everybody.
yeah. Well, only thing I hope that you care about is what we care about, and that's this thing right here, right? If we could replace all career politicians from both parties to eliminate corruption, and I know that's a broad statement, would you vote for it? Because at the end of the day, what I am trying to always convey to everyone, whether you're MAGA, liberal, or anywhere in between, is we could eliminate the influences by special interest corporations and billionaires and the lobbyists and make sure that being a politician is only a temporary civic service, meaning so you can't be in politics for a career. It's not meant to be a career. It's meant to be a temporary civic service. If we could do those two things, every other issue you care about, whether it's gun rights, it's abortion, it's immigration, economic policy, national debt, every other thing could then be amicably settled and decided by those people who actually represent the people again. Because right now our representatives don't represent the people. They represent the people that pay them to be in office.
I always thought that I was a Republican because when I was 18 was the first year I got to vote, and I got to vote for Ronald Reagan, and I liked Reagan. But then, so I always thought I was a Republican. But lately, I realized Reagan really wasn't a Republican. He just ran on the Republican ticket because that was the only way he was going to win. He wasn't going to win as a independent. So I liked Reagan, but I always thought I was Republican. Then one year I finally took a political test online here, and I thought for sure I was going to lean into the Republican Party, right? For sure. And when I took my test, I found out that I'm a centrist libertarian
Uh,
that leans one click. Have you ever seen those political tests that I'm talking about?
I have.
They kind of like give you a graph and show you like with a graph, there's a graph there, and they show you each individual box the way you lean. And I was right on this, almost on the center line, just one box toward the right and up above centrist in the middle. And I was in the middle of libertarian and just one little box to the right leaning towards Republican. So I
I
I,
think
I found that kind of strange that I'm kind of an independent basically like you, I'd imagine.
I think most people are. I
But
I think
I find myself leaning voting for the Republicans still for some reason. I don't know why, but I find that in my bones still.
Can I tell you why I think that might be?
Yeah,
Okay, because libertarians and Republicans historically in messaging has been somewhat similar. Libertarians are for small government. Libertarians are for individual rights. Libertarians are for minimum taxation. These are all things that, historically speaking, the Republicans have tried to espouse to, right?
correct.
Here's the problem.
Both sides for many years though, both sides claim to be that, but they never really are. It seems to be.
Well, I want to maybe blow your mind away a little bit, and from a practical perspective, libertarianism, and you may not like this, Mr. Global, you've never responded to this as well. Libertarianism, all those things that sound so wonderful in a document, if you read what a libertarian is things that most people in theory would like to believe that how we could run our government because it sounds great. The problem is in practical, real world perspectives, it's impossible. It's a fairy tale. It's a dream world, and it cannot exist because there's not a single libertarian government in the world. And the reason is it's because it's a philosophy. It's not something that can be put into practice. Because in practice, when you think small government, okay, great, sounds great. The problem is when you have 370 million people like we do in a $5 trillion economy, we have to protect ourselves. And that means, and protect the world in some cases. That means we need a really large military like we have. So small government and large military don't go hand in hand. So you would have to say, okay,
They
well,
can.
no, they can't. Because if you go small military,
Can.
and you go small military and you have the size of country that we have and you have a small military, guess what happens? Sociopaths and psychopaths, meaning dictators, authoritarians, fascists, communists, all start to take over the world because
Yeah, Obama, like people like Obama,
what are you calling Obama?
a fascist and a dictator type wanting to take over the world.
Well, then you don't know what respectfully, you don't know the definition of a communist or a fascist or even socialism.
Well, he's definitely a fascist. He took over he's the one who made it legal for the news media to lie to us. He took away the Smith-Mundt Act. You know that, right?
They what's the name of the other act was,
Did he not take that act away?
I don't know what.
I'm gonna look it up real
So
quick.
what does that mean? What he took away? What freedoms from the
It gave the right to the news media to serve us propaganda and not be in trouble for it.
No, that was the
In
fairness.
other words, to lie to us.
That was the Fairness Doctrine, and the Fairness. Well, one of
No,
the.
no, no, no. He took away the Smith-Mundt Act. Your buddy's looking it up. He'll come back and let you know.
But
That I'm
before
right.
that was the Fairness Doctrine that allowed media to be owned by very few people or very few corporations. That happened. That was enacted in 1949, and it was eradicated in 1987. So under our friend Reagan. Anyway, Obama was not a fascist. He never espoused to a political religion that said that if you understand what fascism is, it means everybody serves the state and everybody serves one particular religion. So there's always one dominant religion, and that everything else is marginalized. That is what a fascist is. So you could use the term fascist if you like, but you're using it improperly, and you're using it, and without knowing it, you've been manipulated into thinking it's something that it's not. That's just not the definition.
The Smith-Mundt
No,
Act is a 1948 law that authorized U.S. international broadcasting and cultural exchange, but included a domestic dissemination ban to prevent the U.S. government from propagandizing its own citizens. The original ban was substantially altered by the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012, which went into effect in 2013. And then it further says there's a representative, October 2025, Thomas Massey introduced a bill to repeal the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012 and restore the prohibition on domestic dissemination.
There, can you ask it to do a quick summary in really short, concise?
Oh, you found out. You find it. I saw a shocked look on your face. You're shocked that I was
No,
correct,
no, no.
aren't you?
I'm not shocked
No,
you're
no.
correct. I just don't quite understand what the full relevancy of it is.
Well,
It
and it's
allows
hard
these
though
news
too
media
that
to lie to us.
Who lied?
That's exactly what it did,
So
without being in trouble for. And in other words, they don't have to worry about the uh uh,
the,
Nuremberg Code and the Nuremberg trials. They don't have to worry about that. They can propagandize us and get
wasn't
away
that
with it.
something that Congress has to vote on
right.
too,
I don't
though?
know. How did
That's why
Obama?
the fake news, in my mind, that's why the fake news lies to us, and because they know they can get away with that without
See, but
getting
you're
busted
again,
at
you're
the
using trigger
Nuremberg.
words that are all right wing leaning. Fake news stuff. I mean, you're showing some.
All news, every news station, Fox News, ABC, NBC, they're all fake. They tell us nothing but lies. Why? Because Obama allows them to.
So and then what?
Obama allowed them
Where do you get your real news from? That's not fake, as in your words.
all around the world. The BBC, all these social platforms, TikTok, Facebook, X, whatever, like YouTube. I watch a lot of videos on YouTube that I find
Yeah,
interesting.
but there, you realize
And I'm 64 years old, and I've lived life, and I've been through it. I see what's going on in this country, and I don't like it. It's been turning evil.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. I don't like the way all the special interest groups. I'm not going to sit here and defend any Republican or Democratic president. So if you could take the instance of campaign finance reform, all the campaign finance restrictions that used to be in place, you had Reagan loosened those up, and so did Clinton, and so did Bush, and then they were completely eradicated by the Supreme Court in 2014 by Citizens United. So all the people in power have played a role in allowing campaigns to be bought and paid for by special interest groups, right? So those are both presidents from both parties, and including the Supreme Court, have allowed that to happen. But you're cherry picking one instance
But
where you think Obama did something.
Okay,
former
so
President,
now going back to your prompt up there, you want one party system, right?
No,
Is
not necessarily.
that what you're hoping for?
No, we're hoping to disrupt both parties ultimately. Like the proposition is that if there were 50
You
to
mean like kind of like what Trump's doing? The MAGA is the new party.
oh boy. Okay. Well, then you're alienating.
Isn't MAGA the new party that's involved that evolved here?
Yeah, MAGA,
It's
absolutely.
not
MAGA,
Republican.
it's not the
And it's not
Republican Party.
Democrat.
It's the MAGA Party.
It's
You're
not
right.
Republican. No, it's not. It is not Republican.
I am agreeing with you. You're right. It's not the Republican Party. It is the MAGA Party. You're right.
Right.
Now,
It's a whole new party. So isn't that the one that's evolving? You want one party.
No.
So why don't you
I
have
don't want one
propaganda?
party. I do not want one party. I never suggested
Why
that.
not? That's what your prompt says. That you're hoping for a one party, right? To get rid of all the
Where
corruption.
does my prompt say that?
It says if we
There's no
take
corruption
all
in the
career
MAGA party.
politicians from both parties. Oh, I see. Okay, I misunderstood what your prompt said. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm not
I
advocating
just
for one party. I'm advocating for independence or a new party in addition to the existing parties to disrupt both
well,
parties.
independents are already there. So I mean, what's your point?
No,
We do have independent party, but no one backs it. Not
no.
Can
enough
I
people back it.
can I add something real quick? Former President Barack Obama did not repeal the Smith-Mundt Act, but a 2012 modernization bill signed during his administration effectively lifted the long-standing ban on distributing U.S. government-funded media within the United States.
Right. It was always
So,
forever. We were
and
allowed
we
to
both know how the
propagandize
bills work.
overseas. We were
We
allowed to propagandize overseas for all this for many years. But that act came in and said they're allowed to do it. We were allowed to do it overseas, but not in the states. Well,
and we know our bills though
that
are
act allowed them to do it
multifaceted.
here to us. That
So
act allowed them to do it to us.
there's probably something in there that they needed to get past, and they were like, well, we'll let this happen too, without really recognizing the ramifications. I'm not
No,
saying you're wrong. I
Obama knew
agree
what he
with
was
you,
doing.
Scott. I
Obama
agree
knew what he
with
was
you.
doing.
I
Yeah,
All
don't
Obama knew what
want,
he was
right,
doing.
hold on, guys, for a second. Phoenix wanted to jump in here and say something. So, Phoenix, welcome. I think you have something to say. You want to add, right?
Yeah. So my proposal is, first of all, term limits of 12 years. That's 2 years for senators or 2 terms for senators and 6 terms for representatives. Keep the presidential term limit as it is. SCOTUS, I'm not sure about. I need to think about that some more. As far as government shutdowns go, I think that the people, the uh, Congress needs to go ahead and be held financially liable and have there be a penalty for every day the government is shut down that comes out of their own pockets. And I believe they should not be paid during the government shutdown. Period.
Okay. All right. I thought you were going to add something to our existing conversation here, but I respect your
Well,
points
you
of
know what?
view.
He brought something
Um,
up that was interesting.
Go ahead.
what's that?
let me address what I just said. I wholeheartedly agree that career politicians need to go ahead and just be dumped. 100%.
Amen. Yep.
And that's both Republican and Democrat.
Yep. Agreed. All right, Scott, go ahead.
Well, I'm 64, and I kind of lost my train of thought when I got
That's all right.
interrupted.
That's all right. Will you come back to us when you're ready?
Sorry.
When you speak with passion, sometimes the mind gets a little blurry, a little foggy.
Yeah, it does. But he had some interesting points there. But he added some stuff there. It was cool what he was saying.
We do
But
agree, though, Scott, that it's not a good idea for other people to influence us with media. I agree with
right,
you on that.
that's what's wrong with it. We've been divided as a nation, and it's terrible.
I just don't like the finger pointing because Obama was just the face of what the whole governing body, because that's what a fascist is that he would have by himself executive decision, this is what we're doing. But isn't that how our system works, TK? It's in a bill, so the whole body has to vote on it to
Right.
pass it.
I get angry or disappointed and angry, and I will push back hard like I did against Scott, when you call fat people fascists that are not doing fascist things. Fascists are people who make decisions unilaterally and without consent of what the government's doing. And they always ban political opposition. So if you think MAGA is trying to be a singular party, then you are right, Scott, because if any group is trying to oppress their opposition using the courts or using the government to do so, or intimidation, that is actually what fascists do. And I'm not calling Trump
Yeah,
a
that's what
fascist yet, but the
the
direction.
Democrats did to Trump.
How did they do
That's
that to
exactly
Trump?
what
That
the Democrats
argument.
did to Trump. They indicted him over. They wouldn't leave him alone, dude.
They indicted him?
They interfered with elections. They rigged elections. Come
Oh
on,
boy.
don't say they didn't. Don't
Oh,
say they didn't rig elections. They got caught.
what do you mean they got caught? With what evidence?
They got caught. It's coming out. Haven't you heard? I guess you don't listen to all the news, huh?
Scott, I listen.
Well,
I'm sure I absorb as much information, if not far more, than you do.
but Scott,
Well,
didn't you say
they're
you don't
indicting
listen to
they're
the
indicting
news?
Obama for this.
Right.
They're indicting Obama. You watch. He's going to get indicted
And why would you think? See, again, that's a
for
fascist move.
election interference.
That.
For election interference.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Scott, I appreciate you being here, but you're too far off the deep end for any sort of rational, reasonable discussion.
Okay.
And you are
All right. I'll
clearly
leave.
part of
See
the
you later.
MAGA.
Bye.
Bye. You consider
Bye.
yourself a fascist. Mr. Glow, I sorry to interrupt. Actually, your question was great. But I don't think you can't reason with unreasonable people. So you were trying to reason, and actually, it was a great question.
Well, I think I don't know. I kind of disagree. That's my
Yeah,
personal.
sure.
I think you can reason with them. I think they've on many account. He said he doesn't watch the news. He gets most of his information from social media. If that's what he does, then he's right because
True.
that's what all of the headlines and the topics have shown. I was also one of the people that was like, they stole the election. And then I started seeing some of the other things come out about the votes and the numbers. And I was kind of like, wait, that does look and seem a little odd. So I do understand what he's saying. I don't know. I don't think anybody's too far gone. I don't believe
No,
that.
maybe not too far gone, but I'm not going to try and.
I hear you.
You got 2016, where one guy, for the first time ever, there's never been any question other than 2001 or Gore and Bush, where there was some, but Gore ended
Right.
up pulling out. And up until 2016, when Trump said Russia released the files, that that was the real starting point of both sides questioning our elections, because you're asking a government official, a foreign. Thank you for the badge. Awesome. Appreciate the rose. Thank you. That was the first time that you had someone openly ask for another foreign government to interfere in our elections. Whether you believe there's something there or not is a matter that's completely over the line for any U.S. presidential candidate to even suggest, even if you thought it was a joke. It's not a joke. This is American democracy. It's not a joke. It's not time to make jokes, and it wasn't a joke to say Putin release the files or whatever that phrase was, and then lock her up as your main thing. Lock her up? Are you freaking kidding me? That is the exact thing you do when you're trying to influence people to suppress your political opposition, is to get your people to say in a democracy to lock up your political candidates. That's not how this country works. If you want to make the same equivalency that the Justice Department under Biden went after Trump because he took home nuclear secrets and nuclear documents to his personal place, he's not the president anymore. He becomes a normal citizen. And yes, other people did it as well, including Biden, but not the sensitivity level. The documents were entirely different, and they were not classified at the same sensitivity level as what Trump did. And that is not going after political opposition. That is putting them into the court system, potentially having a grand jury, and then having a jury seek that information, which is very different than a political candidate saying just lock her up. Just because she had emails on a private server, which again should not happen. That should not happen. But now you have a president that does everything on Signal and on Twitter and through normal messaging and all types of unencrypted services that are being conveyed. And she just did email. So like the absurdity of all this drives me nuts, because it was started by one man, and that's Trump going after Obama, saying he wasn't an American. And then in the next election going after Clinton. So I may sound like a liberal here. I'm an independent. I voted for Democrats and Republicans alike, but I don't vote for people who have no integrity and no morals. and no values, and that is Trump. So I voted for Reagan, I voted for Bush, and those are Republicans. And today, Trump is MAGA. So in case someone wasn't clear where I stand, I'll be very
Now,
clear.
now I know where you're at,
Yeah.
TK.
But I am not
But
against all reasonable thinking MAGA people. I am
you know what?
yeah.
You know what I'm against? I'm against talking about the same old shit, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
I want to move on. Let's move on with all of them. Should we replace all I get all out, all of them. Get them out. I don't, that's not
That's
how
right.
we fix things. I'm Mr. Fix It. That's what I should actually change my name to. I, I'm solution and fix it. We can argue about it all day. Scott can argue about it all day. You can argue about it all day. I'm over it. And I think that's what the youth is too. They're all over it because it doesn't solve anything.
No, you
If
do always have to segue the problem that you're talking about into the solution. That's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I see it on both sides. I see your perspective on it. I see Scott's perspective on it, and that's just going to be a point of contention forever because no one's going to want to move. No one's moving on
Well,
that. So
reasonable people move, and there are mostly reasonable people out there. It's just the hardcore people, like what Scott, fascists. I know exactly what fascists are. I have family members that lived under grandparents that lived under fascism. I've heard them talk about it. I know exactly what the process is to fascism. How you get from just a strong authoritarian leader to actually becoming fascists. I stood in front of the Iron Curtain when I was 10 years old in front of East Germany with them pointing the guns in my direction as a 10-year-old. And I say, what do you mean, Mom? Those people can't come out behind those walls? And those of our relatives? Why can't they come out? Just as a, ignorant little 10-year-old. Why won't? No, because they're not allowed to leave. They don't have freedom. They don't have liberty. So it hit me at a very young age that I understood there was a separation between the free people with liberty and freedom of speech and people that just couldn't even leave their country.
I I have I have a lot of family stories too, but I'm not sure that it's something that I want to make public yet.
Okay.
So
Right on. I hear you. All right.
my family was definitely a part of that in some facet.
Yeah,
So
me too. Me too. Um, Upstate Michael. I'm dying down on phone. We've been here a long time, so I'm going to shut it down in a minute. I just want to hear from Upstate Michael. What do you disagree with me, Michael, about which part about lock her up, or I don't know if you want to chime in. No, he's going to join. Okay, Upstate Michael, welcome. No. Oh, I've been wanting to ask you this, Upstate Michael, before you jump in. Can I take a guess what state you're from?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm going to say South Carolina.
No, you're wrong.
Dang. All right.
New York State.
Oh, that would have been the other upstate that's frequently mentioned. Yes. How far up?
Yeah. Well, when I was in the military, of course, anything north of Westchester County, which is just north of New York City,
Yeah.
all considered upstate because we didn't want to be associated with the concrete city. So, but in all actuality, I'm in the Finger Lakes region, which is a region by itself, but it's closer to central New York, south of Syracuse by an hour and a half, south of Rochester by 2 hours.
But when you were younger, you were down near Putnam or Dutchess or something in that area?
No, I grew up right on the Pennsylvania border in a town called Elmira, New York.
Okay.
So we're 15 miles from the Pennsylvania border, right about in the center of the state.
I wouldn't have known what we would have called that, so we never went in that direction that much. Yeah. Okay. So upstate is now by the Finger Lakes are considered north of Syracuse?
No, south of Syracuse.
South of Syracuse.
Southwest.
kind of southwest of Syracuse and more south, directly south of Rochester. As a matter of fact, I'm right at our camp on Seneca Lake right now.
Oh, I'm familiar with Seneca. I used to go to Lake George and near Seneca. How far from Lake George is Seneca?
God, it's got to be 3 hours
Oh, is it that far?
south.
Are you up near Lake Placid? How far from
No,
Lake Placid? No, you're more
no.
west.
If you look at the bottom border of New York State, we're right about in the center of the state, right on the Pennsylvania border.
Okay. Got it. See, I never went to Western New York that much, so that's why my geography of New York is a little off. Yeah, so we just traveled up and down 87, north and south on the east side. We didn't go to Rochester or Syracuse or Buffalo very often or ever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was when I retired, I delivered cars for a dealership when I was delivering a lot of them to Lake George, all up through there, Albany, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It was a part-time gig.
Okay, so which part did you mostly agree with me on? Which again, we totally disagree on many things, but hopefully never about eliminating corruption.
No, we got to get rid of corruption, but I understand where Scott was coming from, because for 10 years, I mean, and I'm not a Trump lover. The guy, I just don't like a lot of what he does, but I'm just a fact type of guy, and he was prosecuted and persecuted for 10 years by the other side. And these people had an agenda, and they were gonna, and what would possess anyone to invade a POTUS home? I mean, I don't care what documents you have, because they all have documents. And I believe that Biden had just as critical of documents. And not only that, his were stored in the garage. I think all the POTUSes have documents. They keep documents. But I think it was a real injustice to our president, not Trump. I'm saying the position, to persecute him the way they have, and to invade him the way he was. They wanted to perp walk him, is what they wanted to do.
But they didn't.
So in some token, I always kind of favor I kind of look at the underdog and try to figure out things in my own brain. And Hillary Rodham Clinton and the DNC purchased that Steele document, the dossier. They purchased it, and it was all fake information. Russiagate has already been addressed. It's already, all the information's out there. It was fake. It had nothing to do with Trump and Russia. It was a document that was produced by the DNC.
Well, it was produced by Steele, who had a lot of misinformation, information that wasn't accurate. That's true. Okay, let me ask you something else. So I'm going to come back to, when it comes to, you think that Trump was persecuted by Biden's Justice Department for taking documents. So let me ask you two questions. First, when Trump was coming to power and got involved in politics, or when Obama was coming to power and Trump wasn't involved in politics, and he was questioning Obama's not being an American, what would you call that? Was that some sort of persecution, not legal persecution, but do you think that was right for him to do?
I don't think, I don't have a problem with questioning that. I had a problem with the way he did it, which is the way he does everything, which is arrogant and inappropriate.
So don't you think he started making a lot by, not only did he, when he knew it was wrong, when he knew it was untrue, he continued to do it because it got him votes, right? So he lied the whole time, proven that Obama. So one thing to question it, I agree with you said, but then he used that platform for 6 years, 8 years, however many years. He used that to build himself a movement based on a falsehood, right?
He did.
Okay, great. So we're in agreement there. So that's the first part. So most people think that was way out of bounds. Never mind, he wasn't even a politician at that point. He wasn't running for anything, but he was just using it to gain influence. Okay, so yeah.
I think it should have been investigated because Obama's own brother stated he wasn't born in the United States. And is he just doing that to get on the news? Who knows?
Yeah.
The family dynamics are screwed
Okay.
up.
So at what point, if we always want to hold our politicians accountable, even I would hope even presidents, and I get there needs to be some leeway. At what point is it following law and order, or should presidents just always be completely exempt from any sort of rule in the rule of the law, the rule of law? Like, at what point would can you prosecute or go after a former president and it's not going after your opposition? Like, at what point is it rule of law versus is it just being persecuted for your political beliefs?
Well, at that time, I was watching a lot of C-SPAN to see what was actually going on the floor of the House and the Senate. And I sit there and watched James Clapper and John Brennan flat out lie. And I mean, they flat out lied to Congress on multiple times. And you know what? They're not held accountable. And I believe that because of the way J. Edgar Hoover was, and the way and the stuff that he was trying to find out about everybody, so he could blackmail everybody, the CIA and the FBI, they got out of control. And I think Brennan and Clapper were a big part of that. And I don't know if we'll ever. And I say we, I mean Americans.
But what's the difference? Were any of them prosecuted by a jury of their peers?
Absolutely not. There was no consequences at all. But yet they were proven to lie because I don't know how many years later it came right out where they actually lied and it all came out. It's all out there.
But I think at the end of the day, we have to make a decision. Can our political leaders be held accountable? And if they are going to be held accountable, or if they should just always never be persecuted, because they're always going to be viewed, no matter what party, going to be viewed as you're going after the opposition. So it's either, unless I'm missing something, it's either we don't hold any political representatives or government officials accountable, because otherwise it's viewed, or we actually do, and they have to run through a process. And it's one thing to be indicted by the Department of Justice like Comey is today, but there's really nothing I can see there is going to be enough evidence by any means. So if they want to go after him, okay, but then we should go after everybody and hold everybody accountable, and then they have to be convicted by an impartial jury, right? So it's a very fine line. Like, where do we draw the line? What happens?
That's a good point. And you know what? How many POTUSes were investigated prior to Trump? I mean, the hate for that man.
Yeah, but for 250 or 230 years, we even had Nixon get pardoned when he clearly broke the law, but we've had people that haven't gone after people, right? Even though there have been political people that have done things wrong, like Nixon. And most politicians have just said, okay, it's not that egregious and we're not going to prosecute. But that has recently changed. But at what level is the crime become so big that we actually have to persecute it?
Right, that's a good point. And I don't have that answer. I think at some point it should be handled some way, shape, or form. But we have to protect our presidency.
Did Trump, when he became president the first time, did he try and go after his political opposition? And I'm not super ready to answer that either. That's actually a question I'm going to look up at too. So he did want Hillary to be locked up. He did mention about locking up Hillary. I'm going to ask someone else to join because maybe J. Rod Unleashed can add to this, or if he wants to do something totally different. So I'm going to invite someone else on because maybe
she's been locked up.
J. Rod.
I mean,
Yes.
All right. Did you want to help me answer that question at all, or are you coming in fresh?
He didn't go after anyone.
Well, did he suggest that his department should have
He
gone
would,
after?
yeah, he said that he should have gone after Hillary, and evidence said that we should have went after Hillary too. I mean, it was proven that she was using illegal servers, all that. But he's like, you know,
At the same time Trump was using his personal cell phones to communicate? At the same time, right?
he wasn't president yet.
When he became president, he immediately started using his personal cell phone, and the Secret Service, he wouldn't use the phone the Secret Service gave to him.
Well, Barack Obama had the same thing.
No,
He
his
didn't
was
give up
approved
his
by the Secret Service.
BlackBerry. I'm not sure that that's. I'm not sure that you're correct on that. That he was. I mean, you're allowed to use personal devices. It's just what you do with them.
Not before, I don't think. Before Obama, I think you had, well, the Secret Service always wanted to use their devices, but obviously in the world of smartphones, I think Obama got permission, but we'd have to look into that. So let's not go down that path.
But all I'm saying is that he Brennan basically, or Comey actually said Hillary was guilty of what they were looking into, but didn't think that there would be enough to indict her, which was bullshit. I shouldn't say, I apologize for bullshit, but
That's all right. Well, I mean, Nixon did far worse, right? And we didn't persecute him. We gave him a pardon, which was probably the right thing to do, right? To try and keep some sanity in our politics.
well, I'm no expert on Nixon, but there's a lot. Nixon had nothing to do with Watergate.
So during Donald Trump's first term, and I'm not sure if he's the first president to ever do this, but let's call facts the facts. During his first term, 2017 to 2021, prior to him, I don't believe, including Nixon, when he was pardoned, Johnson didn't persecute him or go after him. But Trump repeatedly called for Hillary Clinton to be investigated and jailed over her use of a private email service. So once in office, his administration did not pursue criminal charges, although he was calling for it. However, Trump continued to pressure the DOJ and the FBI publicly and privately to reopen investigations, according to reports and later testimonies. So there's the difference. Is he became president, he won the election, and then he starts to continuing to call for investigations. Now, the investigations didn't happen because apparently the Department of Justice at that time didn't think there was enough to indict on. But why even call for it?
There's no heart to, it depends on who runs what.
You're president of the United States. You won the election. You're not supposed to prosecute your political opposition, right? So he was the first one continuing to call for it.
Well, he wasn't the first one.
He was the first one. Obama did.
You got to start back when Obama was spying on his campaign to begin with. They're all dirty. There isn't a single one of them that isn't playing the same game. It's hilarious because they all sit there with their fingers pointed at one another when they got three pointing back to themselves.
It's, I'm against both parties. I make that very clear all the time.
I would agree with what you have in the state.
Yeah, both parties are wholly corrupted by special interest money, billionaires, and corporations. That's where I always stand. But I also, when I talk about specific issues like this, I want to make sure we stick with facts and not conjecture.
Well, it's a fact that Obama used the FISA court to get devices so he could tap Trump's phones, which they denied until it was proven that actually happened. You looking up FISA?
Mm-hmm. How do you? Is it FISA?
I couldn't tell you for sure.
Where are you getting your source from? Where do you think this is coming from?
Oh, it's been a while. I'd have to fire up my computer here myself.
Okay. So you're getting that information from Trump, most likely, because he tweeted it. So there's no evidence.
Trump complained about it the whole time he was there, but then there was actually an investigation that found out that he used the FISA court to get.
That's not true. It's factually not true.
I don't believe that.
What actually happened is the FBI did obtain a FISA warrant to surveil Carter Page, not Trump, a former Trump campaign advisor, because of his contacts with Russian individuals and concerns about possible foreign influence. So you're right, there was a FISA warrant, but it was for Carter Page. He was also caught, I think, in another country with a foreign agent, with a Russian agent, but I might be wrong about that. And the warrant required court approval, not a presidential order. So it wasn't Obama. It was court approval for one of Trump's former campaign advisors. Those are facts. So, but if Trump tweeted it, I can see how you would come to that conclusion, because Trump tweeted it and he used Carter's FISA warrant to claim that he was also being tapped. And there's no evidence of that at all.
And they were going to prosecute Carter Page, and he didn't do anything. There was no Russia influence. None. Zero.
Well, listen, guys, on this aspect, whether it comes to China, Russia, Israel, or many others, there is constant Russian, China, and Israeli and other countries' influence on our elected officials. All of them. So, like, let's not be all naive to think that that's not being influenced by foreign agents at all times. You know, it doesn't mean that the candidate directly is, but their people. I think you can take, who's the one?
Well, they all try and have plausible deniability.
Yeah.
I mean,
don't forget that Hillary Clinton was responsible for the death of Ambassador and some of our troops, because Ambassador Stevens contacted or called for help several times in Benghazi, and then Obama sent his female whatever it was. She blamed the Benghazi on a movie, on the backlash from a movie that was totally inaccurate.
Okay, but you see what's happening here. So J-Rod, by the way, I only muted you because you had a lot of background noise. So just so you know, I don't know if you can unmute yourself or if I have to do it, but you have a lot of background noise. So I am.
I'm fine, and I will mute myself between conversations.
Cool. So, but you see what's happening right here is we're doing the same thing that everybody else does. We're sitting here arguing points about these individual issues, and we're sort of dividing our camps into sort of protecting the red or protecting the blue, right? Versus, and you can see how easily we fall into this trap, because what we really should be aligning against is the corruption and making sure that being a politician can't be a career. Because if once it's a career, then you get corrupted, right? And you get corrupted, and ultimate power corrupts. So this is kind of like normal. Like, this is how we all go down the shithole, right? In arguing about issues.
It is, but you drew us into it. That's why I disagreed with you through text before I came on.
Fair point.
Voice.
Fair point. Yeah, I'm going to give you my personal opinions on issues, of course, and like you said, you don't have to listen. But you're right. I did draw you guys into it. But this is what happens, right? And it's one thing to have, lively debates about issues, and this is kind of what happens, right? And I'm not immune to it, and we're not all immune to it. This is the flaw of the human condition, is that we all get drawn into sort of our tribal viewpoints, and then we all sort of get mad at each other eventually and want to disagree more than we agree.
Nobody's getting mad.
Well, I don't get mad.
I just get even.
No, I don't even do that. I mean, I'm not going to change people's opinions on certain things. It seems like you're pretty reasonable. I kind of have a feeling you lean more on the left side than the right, just from our conversation. I could be wrong, but just the way you're, phasing that. But it really boils down to, I think, what you're saying in this caption. We need to replace all career politicians on both sides and start over fresh and put term limits on it, because we just got a good old boy club going. There was a study by one of the big colleges that that track the bills that go through Congress and Senate, and what the public wanted and what the corporations and the special groups out there wanted, what got passed. It wasn't what we wanted passed, the American public. It was all these special interest groups that got all their stuff through. And it wasn't even close. It was like 90% of all bills that are passed through Congress and Senate benefit all these other things other than what we actually ask our politicians to do for us.
That's right. I always bring back the two ones, like federal background checks on guns. 89% of the American population, including those who are members of the NRA, want a universal background checks at the federal level. And we can't get those passed, even though almost 90% of the people want that. And on stock trading by government officials and congressional leaders, we all know that shouldn't be happening, but we can't get that passed either, because neither of those parties and influencers will allow it to happen, right? And that's just two of hundreds of other things that we should be agreeing upon.
Well, yeah, if I trusted the government, which I don't, I would have no problems with federal background checks. I already do. I don't know what people are talking about. I have to go through a check every gun that I buy, not just the one gun, and I'm done. Every time I buy a gun, I have to fill out
That's
that.
right. But you may not, each state has their own rules regarding different shows and so forth. And we know that a lot of our guns in Texas are sold by dealers to Mexican, to the drug cartels and so forth. So the universal federal background checks are nothing more than to just codify a singular system across all states, so there are no loopholes.
Yeah, well, I'm some of it fine, and then the private private purchases. Like I should be able to sell my gun to my neighbor as long as that. I'm responsible for my neighbor if he's a felon.
But how are you supposed to know that?
Well, there should be some sort of. I wouldn't have a problem with the government setting up something where it shows there's,
Well, that's all.
an
But we're
but
just
I don't
saying,
want to register my guns.
right? But we don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But that's just 2 points that we basically made. Is that like the HR1 bill? If you put it into GPT, the whole bill, and you say, who wrote this bill? The amount of special interests is enormous. Like who was involved? It's just absurd.
Yes, the shit that they put in these bills nowadays is just crazy. I mean, and they both do it, but I think Democrats are especially good at doing it, as they put all this shit in there, and then the Republicans say, "No, we're not going to do that." No, oh, you want to kill babies, or you want to starve children? That you're killing grandma because there's one good thing in the bill, but there's all this other garbage, and they're saying, "Well, strip this out, strip this out."
Well, that's why both parties are influenced by money, and you may have different views on how I may lean one way or the other way. It doesn't really matter. It's just they're both.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't
No,
matter.
no.
I'm a proponent of single issue bills. I just want single issue. I don't like this laundry list of shit. Just do.
I thought of something crazy. You should have someone that writes a bill, and there can be no communication between all the different people. You propose a bill, and it stands on its own merit, and there's no hidden deals and hidden agendas. Like it should be, they work behind the scenes. Maybe you have to have a co-sponsor from the other party. Who knows, right? But then you put it out there, and it's just voted on the merits, and it's not changed by another committee or a group.
Lord only knows we don't need. Everybody's like, "Oh, the government shutdown." I think we got plenty of laws on the books. I'm not going to be upset that some stupid regulation that someone wants to put on someone else and make that field. I think we could do like the gentleman down below said, one bill at a time.
Right.
I mean,
we have plenty of laws on the books that we don't enforce.
Yeah, it's obviously too much for them to handle. So,
well, listen, I'm always against. I would love small government as well, but the problem is government is not the problem. It is the solution, but government is also a problem at times. But it's the only mechanism we have as a society to protect ourselves. And the world's moving faster and faster than ever. So you may think there's a lot of laws but we have AI coming up, and government's completely blind to what could AI could do, right? It's having a mass extinction event happening in jobs right now in our economy, and we're not doing anything about it. So at the end of the day, we're 370 million people. We're a $5 trillion economy. Our government needs to be active. Hopefully there's a balance between being too big and too active, but regulations are the only means we have to protect society. That is not conjecture. It's not an opinion. It's the only thing. Like, it's how we have clean water. It's how we have clean air. It's how we don't, when we crash in our cars, that you don't get killed because the airbag saves you. It's when you turn on your light that when the bulb breaks, it doesn't catch on fire. Like, there's millions of things that these regulations actually do to protect us. Like when you're driving down a road, like every little thing that you do in your life is impacted by government. And it's always a balance of too much regulation versus not enough.
There's regulations that harm us also.
Regulations are harmless upstate?
No, I say that there are regulations that do harm us.
Oh, absolutely. There's a positive and negative consequence to every decision you make in life. There's always a yin and a yang, right? So every regulation is going to have a negative impact on somebody. It's impossible not to. It's almost impossible not to.
Well, what the government though actually does is they go out and form a stupid department of stupid, and then you got a non-elected bureaucrat that's actually regulating all this. It's not even voted on. You get some guy that runs the ATF that maybe hates guns, and he's banning bump stocks, everything you can think of on guns.
Reagan was the first person to ban bump stocks.
Huh?
Reagan was the president to ban bump stocks, wasn't he? Or
no,
assault rifles. Was it assault rifles? Yeah, that was right. Reagan.
Clinton actually had a ban on assault rifles. Reagan did not.
I like the way J Rod explains things because it's like it's so easy, you know? A department of stupid.
Well, yeah, I mean that's all they do is you got a non-elected bureaucrat creating all these laws that we have to follow that no one's voted on. I didn't elect the guy, and it could be based
Yeah.
on how he feels about things.
I honestly believe 50% of our regulations could be eliminated.
Well, I would agree.
It should be like a car. It should be like a car lease. Every law has to be reviewed after like a period of time.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
For you.
What I liked during Trump's first term, there was a 28-mile road that they had to get federal permission for, and he brought up a stack of papers, and it was about 4 phone books thick. And he says, we haven't taken a single scoop of dirt yet, and it's already cost us $28 million just in all this paperwork. This pile of paperwork has cost us $28 million so far. If the current government that's running the government now, we'd never have the Golden Gate Bridge. The Empire State Building was built in like 18 months. It took us almost 20 years to build the Freedom frickin' Tower because of all the crap and regulations and all that.
Yeah, but we're a big country. There's always bureaucracy, right? I mean, governments. You have bureaucracy in your own household.
Yes, but we don't need it all the way from top to bottom. And everyone's getting
but this is the point. This is the point. We use.
I owned a construction company. Let me give you a perfect example. I owned a construction company. The city would require me to go get a permit to put a privacy fence in. I owned a commercial fencing company, but I did private fence. And I had to go, if I wanted a variance, I had to go before the board. And before I could go to the board, I had to get a soil sample. And I'm like, when I got before the board, I'm like, why do you need this soil sample? And no one could answer the question why they even needed this soil sample thing. If I wanted to build the fence within regulation, I didn't need it. But if I wanted to build outside of it, and the only variance I wanted is I wanted to make it 6 foot instead of 4 foot. And the bottom line was, it was the city basically making me go over to another place, pay another $150 to get a soil sample, or and that happens all the freaking time.
Yep.
I mean, Steve Jobs said it best. He says, the cost of labor to build a iPhone here, I could pass that along to the public. It's what it costs to create the company here. He said, I'd spend probably $1 billion before I even broke ground on a factory here. And all the regulations and all the other crap I'd have to deal with is what I can't pass on $1,500 additional dollars, but I can pass on 400.
Well, we're the country that made globalism. Well, anyway, this lively discussion. I only want to shut this down because I have 2% of my battery left, and my phone is going to cut us out on this live entirely.
You're in your garage. Can't you even put it in, plug it in?
It can, but the problem is I got the audio that runs through my computer. So if I unplug here to plug in, then I'm dead. Then I lose.
Oh, no.
It only has, Steve Jobs, if he would have put in 2 USB-C ports onto the bottom of my iPhone, I wouldn't have a problem. And it was probably for the damn regulation that said someone can't put in 2 USB ports.
No, he'll just make it a different one. It'll be a USB-C, and then it'll be a USB-A, and then
that's right.
you need it.
By the way, I'm in my shop too.
Yeah, this is the only place, as a guy, we all know this is sometimes the only place we get peace, right? So we have to be in our shops.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for joining. We can disagree about issues. I hope we don't disagree with this. We need to bring representation back to the people, and hopefully.
I don't think overall we disagreed with much.
No, not too much. Yeah, we all have slightly variances of shit, right? But at the end of the day, we agree with a lot more.
Better country. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want representation for the people, by the people, and I know it's never going to happen with these two parties.
Right, and I want my taxpayer to mean my tax dollars that I spend, and I spend a shit ton. I want it to mean something.
Oh, good. No, they just give it to me.
They give it to a lot of people that don't do nothing.
Thanks for your contribution. My family really appreciates it.
I hope
you might be serious. It sounds like you're serious.
No, I'm not serious. I paid
tools behind you. You have to have a job.
I played a lot into the system, and now I don't have to use my tools every day. I do it because I love to use them. Unlike Mr. Global, that actually has to still use them. But I have quite a few years of Mr. Global, and my full-time, hard-working labor days are more behind me, other than the therapeutic nature that I use them for.
Well, J-Rod's soil sample cracked me up because I couldn't. I do fences, so I was just like, "Yep, that's it."
Yeah, it's just one hand. It's I had a guy from Russia when I was building a fence for him, and I said, "Do you miss your country?" And he says, "I don't miss all the corruption." He says, "To get a license, you had to pay him, whether you passed the test or not. Everybody you had to pay. It's the same thing. At least you were paying the crooked guy at the DMV, but it's the government we pay. All the crooked shit that we have to do. You know what?
Just remember, government is people, right? It's the people problem. It's not a mythological creature, right? It's the people in government.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say about the guy, who was a heart surgeon, by the way. And he says, everybody in Russia has 2 jobs. The job they have for the government and the job they make money at. He was a heart surgeon in Russia, and he only made $148 a month.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't in the special, what they call like the CIA or if you're high enough up in the military or the CIA of Russia, the FSB, then of course you do pretty well.
Yes. It depends on, how far up the government chain you are.
That's right. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I got 1% left, and I don't want to just die it. I'd actually want to shut it down. Thanks for joining, J-Rod. If you haven't followed, please do so. We have these discussions often. I appreciate it.
I enjoyed your format.
All right. Thanks so much. See you guys. Have a great night.